Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto meets Jiraiya early part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Thump. 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 A young boy with clear blue eyes looked up inside the apartment. 3 slow knocks, so soft one could hardly hear the raps. Truth be told, in Konoha there was only ever one person who actually knocked on his door, as the housekeeper would simply barge in. By an easy process of elimination, the boy concluded this could only be one person. The youngster stepped over to the front door and opened it carefully. In front of him was a formal white-robed old man, standing at the second-story porch of his apartment. "Hello, Naruto-kun." The old Hokage's eyes crinkled with merriment. "GG." The single word was filled with warmth. Naruto pushed the rest of the door open and gave the grandfatherly figure a hug. This breach of etiquette was something the old man didn't mind in the slightest. Therefore, Naruto never noticed the concealed ANBU squad watching them. "Let's go inside, Naruto-kun, I have important news," the Hokage said friendly, and took great amusement from how Naruto's eyes became bulbous at the mention of anything important. He nodded quickly and took the Hokage by his sleeve. Sarutobi Hiruzen smiled and followed amiably. The one-room apartment Naruto inhabited was a bare place, but he didn't mind that so much. He thought of his new home as pretty nice. The place only had the essentials, but he didn't mind. Compared to the orphanage, Naruto loved the apartment. He could handle being a bit lonesome, at least no one was mean to him here. None of that was on his mind now, however. Naruto's eyes were firmly glued to the old and venerable village leader as they sat down by the kitchen table, eager to know what the Hokage considered important. Sarutobi Hiruzen met his eyes and noted how the young boy held his gaze. Sarutobi was unsurprised. A normal child would not gaze so expectantly at him like Naruto was doing just now, but Uzumaki Naruto was not a normal child. Indeed, Naruto was far removed from normalcy. Not so much because of who he was and what he represented. In essence, that was not truly the issue. The real problem was how others perceived Naruto and his status. The child had by no means experienced a good or nurturing childhood so far, and it was Sarutobi's great fear that if left unattended much longer, something in the boy would break. That would not only be reprehensible morally, but neither could Hiruzen afford to have Konoha's only Jinchuriki snap. If Naruto became unstable, he would be useless in the future. An unhinged Jinchuriki would only be a liability to Konoha. A slight twitch on his furrowed forehead was the only thing that could clue someone in on the Hokage's increasingly morbid thoughts. With a resolute intake of breath, Hiruzen ended that train of thought. Today, he was here to help Uzumaki Naruto, the boy. Not the Jinchuriki of Konoha. Hiruzen met eyes with the boy again, and was reminded of someone else for a brief moment. Even the gaze was familiar, the way Naruto was openly studying him with curiosity. The resemblance to his late father was uncanny. Naruto kept up the gaze even when the silence between them grew. He did not fidget or otherwise show any sign of impatience. Hiruzen had taken note early on when Naruto had shown himself to be a rather quiet child. He only rarely made requests, he never cried, and lately seemed to not wish any attention on himself. Every time Hiruzen had come to the orphanage to pay a visit, the boy had seemed more and more withdrawn. This had for a long time now greatly displeased the famed professor of the shinobi. Although he was a hardened war veteran accustomed to making decisions between a greater and lesser evil, he nonetheless considered the treatment of the child in front of him deplorable. Removing him from the orphanage had been a very good idea, and he was glad he had pushed through with it despite the resistance certain circles had displayed. That gambit, however, had been an easy ordeal compared to the trouble he had gone through with to see this next plan come to fruition. In truth, Hiruzen was still anxious about the events that were about to unfold, but he just couldn't see any other valid option. Naruto had no guardians or adopted parents, he had no real friends or people who looked after him, no one to teach him anything. The lack of any adult role model and true friends were bad enough, but the outright disregard many of the villagers treated him with made Konoha a toxic environment for Naruto. None of the reprimands and fines he issued seemed to shake the ones repeatedly causing the boy problems, which had driven Hiruzen to this last act of desperation. A gamble, really. One with high stakes. Hiruzen hoped it would all be for the better in the end, but the uncertainty remained. I think a cup of tea would do me good right about now, Hiruzen announced and stood back up. How about you, Naruto-kun? Hiruzen made sure to ask Naruto. Very few people cared for the boy's opinion and wishes. It truly upset the wizened old man. Neglect to such a degree could do far more than simply shatter a person's self-confidence and sense of worth, as if that alone was not bad enough. Hiruzen's smile was just a tad melancholic when Naruto accepted a cup of tea with a self-conscious smile. All the more reason to realize the plan, Hiruzen mused. While pouring water, Hiruzen tried to make some small talk. It's nice to do normal things once in a while. I have not brewed my own tea in years. There is a satisfaction in that, in doing things yourself, even mundane things. Naruto seemed to consider this, before he ventured to tell the grandfatherly figure how he made his own ramen by adding hot water to a pre-made cup every morning. The Hokage hummed in amusement. Very good, Naruto-kun, although you seem to be short on stock. The old man was referring to the near-empty shelf of ramen cups. Naruto dipped his head twice. The Hokage sighed and carried 2 cups filled with steaming tea to the table. On the topic of stocking up, Naruto-kun, I do have some more stipend money for you. He reached into his robes and pulled out a yellowed convolute and laid it next to Naruto's teacup. Thank you, Gigi. Naruto told him. However, there was a slight frown on his face. Something that bothers you? The Hokage asked with a curious glint in his dark eyes. Naruto looked up, then down at the convolute again, before finally asking, so soon? Yes, it has not been quite a month yet, has it? Well, this will be the last time you get a stipend. Now, don't look so frightened. There has been a change in arrangements for you, don't look so glum. This is good news. How? Naruto asked. He failed to see this as anything good. The Hokage hummed lowly to himself, before taking a sip of the tea. His face writhed in an expression of dislike, definitely not his best blend. He cleared his throat and began speaking. You will not live in the village very much longer, Naruto-kun. You will be in someone else's company, a strong and capable man, who will look after you and make sure that you grow up right. Of course, you will return someday. It's not like this is the last time we will see each other. The Hokage interrupted himself with a low chuckle. This is only for a certain amount of time, a handful of years at most. Naruto, however, was not reassured. How could he leave Konoha, his only home? Leaving the only place he knew seemed horribly scary to him. He was still nervous about going for groceries down the street. I don't understand. The boy's voice was clearly upset, and his eyes shone with evident confusion. The Hokage's eyes softened and he stretched a hand over the table to give a comforting squeeze on his shoulder. It's partly my fault, Naruto-kun. I have not been able to give you as much as I would have wanted to. However, this is to help you, believe that. Naruto nodded hesitantly. Gigi was the only person Naruto could really trust. But why? At this, a bone-weary sigh escaped the old man's lips. People here, they just do not understand, they never did, and it's impossible for me to rectify anything. These conceptions of you have become the truth to them. I should have somehow made things clearer that day. Listen, Naruto-kun, staying in Konoha is just not a good solution for you. I'm sure you have noticed how everyone treats you the same way. This plan was the best I could do. Even right now the council is conversing behind my back because they are in disagreement. Fortunately, I am the Hokage, and when I make a decision, there is very little they can do to oppose it. I hope that when you come back, people will see the error of what they have been doing. If not, then at least you will be of an age where you can handle it better. The Hokage took a slight pause. Naruto now looked only more perplexed. There are things I shall not tell you today, Naruto. In a few years maybe, but not now. It is not something a child should know. Let it be enough that I truly believe this is the best course of action for you. Another pause ensued, and in his absent-mindedness Hiruzen took another sip of the tea. Ugh, dreadful stuff. Maybe some tasks are better left to others after all, he said and peered over at the child in front of him. Naruto was looking intently into his swirling teacup. He had always seemed a rather contemplative boy. What about the academy, Gigi? I was just about to enroll. I'm sure I could have made some friends and then things would have gotten better, right? The sad yet hopeful voice tore slightly at his conscience. Yes, they might have, but this plan is a safer bet. Hiruzen knew that Naruto's peers would no doubt carry the same bias against him. Hanging with his head, Naruto tried to stymie the sudden pressure behind his eyes. Continuing the conversation from there was tough, but Hiruzen forced himself to carry on. You'll leave in 2 days, so be prepared to have what you need then. I imagine you at least won't have much luggage. The old man's eyes contained some of that earlier amusement for a small moment. Naruto dabbed angrily at his eyes with the sleeve of his t-shirt, before he tried to shove the envelope from earlier over to the Hokage, but a tanned and gnarled hand stopped him. There was power in that hand. Naruto could practically feel it. Please, Naruto-kun, take it, consider it travel expenses. The Hokage peered at him. Naruto quickly relented and felt very self-conscious again. The two sat together for a few more minutes, quietly drinking their tea. Until Naruto was bitten with a question that worried him. He took a quick look at the Hokage before he asked. Who'll be with me? The Hokage looked at the boy over his teacup and smiled. A deep and warm smile. He is called Jiraiya of the Sannin. Naruto had just finished what would be his last meal at Ichiraku Ramen for a great deal of time, and for that reason, he had tried to eat enough to last him until he got back. Even as he hobbled down the road, his tummy feeling as if it would explode, he did not regret. He waved to the two ninja guards at the gate entrance as he passed. They actually waved back, and it lifted his mood somewhat. Even though he trusted Gigi, he was still very much scared of leaving Konoha. Until recently, the village had been his entire world. Konoha was all he knew of. Despite the reassurances he had been given, he was still afraid of leaving everything, and the unknown world out there frightened him. However, he would still go, even though he didn't understand why. If he trusted no one else, he still believed in the Sandaime. You look like a kicked puppy, hunching like that. What got in your panties? Naruto looked up, and standing there was Jiraiya, the Toad Sage. Gigi had told him a few stories about the veteran ninja. Suffice to say, Naruto was properly awed by them. If the few stories they had brushed past were true, then the man was already a hero in Naruto's eyes. Like the Hokage had described, twin streaks of red markings went from his eyes in a straight vertical line to his chin. His hair was white and long, and he was clothed in what Naruto deemed to be a red and white bathrobe, with ghetto sandals to complete the look. Naruto was slightly intimidated by his looming height. The meeting would have been scary, but Jiraiya had an easy smile, and his eyes were open and honest. You don't look like much, kid. Then again, neither did he, I suppose. His voice was deep but friendly. Naruto looked himself down. He wore shorts and a t-shirt, and nothing more apart from his sandals and a backpack with some essentials. Glancing approvingly at his backpack, Jiraiya asked, Are you ready to go then, kid? We can get to know each other on the road. We have all the time in the world. It'll be great fun, just the two of us. For a moment, the large man seemed like a giddy child, and Naruto's already good impression of him rose. He might even be a friend one day. The thought made him smile. Naruto followed Jiraiya out of Konoha with a lot of his worries already put to rest. He had no idea what laid in wait. The two walked through the abundant lush green forests surrounding Konoha. Naruto was watching the scenery with large eyes. He had never been outside of Konoha before. Everything past the walls was a new world to him. He would have run off to explore had it not been for Jiraiya, who had told him there would be plenty of opportunities to do so later. The first few days Naruto spent his breaks exploring the nearby greenery. When they made camp those evenings, he would also take a look around. Young as he was, Naruto was easily excited when he discovered something of note, like animal tracks and droppings, signposts, abandoned cartwheels, rusty kunai and shuriken left behind, and so on and so forth. Although Naruto's interest in the forestry eventually faded somewhat, he was kept occupied enough while traveling. With questions, riddles, and lots of talk. It was good practice for him. Naruto rarely had anyone to talk to in Konoha. But how do you do it? Naruto asked on their 5th day away. Jiraiya was showing off some rudimentary chakra control while walking. Oh, it's quite easy, at least to me, but I am the great Jiraiya-sama, of course. Simple chakra control is nothing to the great Toad Sage of Mount Myoboku. The Toad Sage exclaimed proudly, wagging his eyebrows. By now, Naruto had realized the man had a flair for drama and was overly proud to boot. Naruto, now finally in the presence of someone who actually seemed to like conversing with him, was drawing up questions constantly. The bottomless pit of ignorance he carried within him was finally seeing some of its questions answered. At first he was slow and hesitant to ask, afraid he might draw Jiraiya's ire, as he had always done with anyone else other than the Sandaime. But slowly and surely, Naruto opened up when he realized Jiraiya didn't mind questions or conversation in the slightest. To the contrary, he seemed to approve. So, his new guardian had deemed it fit to give a demonstration of chakra control when the two had wandered onto the topic of chakra. Currently, Jiraiya was balancing several chopsticks on his fingers, perhaps not so incredible. But when he flipped his hand around and the chopsticks defied gravity itself to stick to his fingers, Naruto was well and truly impressed. He had been quick to try himself, and had promptly demanded to know the secret when he failed. Clucking to himself like a chicken, Jiraiya explained the theory behind the exercise. No, I can't do it. Naruto claimed after several attempts with no results. He shoved the chopstick back into his pocket. If he was completely honest with himself, Naruto was disappointed. He had wanted to channel chakra since the very first time he had heard of shinobi. But even after listening to Jiraiya's explanation and guidance, he still couldn't get a feel of his chakra at all. Jiraiya had described it as a very small, but warm core of energy. Something a minority of people could feel inside of them if they purposefully looked for it. Maybe he just didn't have whatever it was. Don't I have any chakra then? There was a guarded tone to Naruto's voice, which Jiraiya caught. The kid seemed unconcerned on the surface, but he wanted to channel chakra as much as any other boy. Jiraiya was certain of that. No, every individual produces it to at least some degree. Most never notice it, it's too small to be noticed, which is probably a good thing. If they accidentally managed to mold chakra and used it unknowingly with a very small and undisciplined chakra reservoir, the incident could seriously maim them, or worse. But you have it, lots of it. I'm very sure of that. Jiraiya ended his tirade in a firm but not unkind voice. You just have to keep trying. Giving up after a couple of tries is a bad habit. Try your utmost and give yourself some time to learn. I promise you there isn't a thing you can't do if you give yourself a chance. Show some guts. Naruto nodded rapidly and soaked up the words. He was enjoying having someone to talk to. He felt reassured and motivated to try the exercise again. Listen, a great deal of time over the years is going to be spent walking about. It'll be a big part of your life here on out. So try and get used to it. It's better to have things to do and think about when traveling. Try and find things to take your mind off the road you're on. Like this small exercise in chakra control. If you're bored, then don't complain about it. Instead, find things to keep you occupied. As the words washed over Naruto, he seemed to become more introspective. Several times now he had already begun to think the journey monotonous and boring. Jiraiya's words made him feel guilty, and determined to try and not waste any time being bored. Surely he could find some things to do. Anyhow, Jiraiya said, and Naruto noticed how his voice was more carefree now. We'll arrive in Tani in a couple of days. Honestly, the trip has taken a while. Of course, the reason we're going so slow is because your toddler legs are so small. The Toad Sage spoke with an amused glint in the eye. Naruto leapt to his defense immediately. My legs not small. Aren't small, is the word you'd use there. And don't outright deny stuff like that. Sure way to lose your argument, brat. I'm not a brat either. Naruto puffed out indignantly. Jiraiya laughed heartily. Oh, is that so? How old are you then? 5 years? 6? 5 and 8 months. Naruto told him heatedly, but felt an embarrassing red shade latch onto his face. Where are we going again? Naruto grumbled, mostly to get past the age comment. Tani, a village in river country. It's a good 5-day walk from Konoha to Tani, but still, would have been there by now if it weren't for the extra baggage. The last part he added sourly, and Jiraiya threw a mocking look at Naruto. The Toad Sage held up a hand to stem any outcry Naruto might have. Listen, brat, keep at it with the chakra exercise. I'd recommend starting with a leaf first, it's easier that way. Naruto nodded and decided to get started immediately. However, Jiraiya quickly discovered that their already slow pace slowed down to a crawl when Naruto began focusing on the task. Jiraiya solved that problem by throwing Naruto up on his shoulders. He barely weighed anything to the sage. Other than a brief moment of surprise and resistance, Naruto did not object. That's how the two of them traveled down the road, Naruto sitting on Jiraiya's shoulders. Now trying to make a green leaf stay stuck to his skin with chakra, Jiraiya dished out some pointers occasionally. Strange how it took Naruto a few months to actually realize he was receiving hands-on training in the shinobi arts from a master. It took Naruto a while to get used to life on the road. It was different from living in Konoha, and it was, to his great joy and surprise, a lot more fun. In Konoha he was always bored and looking for things to do, he was always alone, the people there avoided him and tried not to look at him. Jiraiya looked at him. He was nice too, most of the time. Compared to life in Konoha, travel life was infinitely more carefree and enriching. Although they spent a lot of their time journeying around, Naruto always had something to do, and more often than not, his days were filled with new and exciting things. New people to meet, new places to see and explore, different foods to taste and different things to learn. The first month away from the village Naruto spent in a very busy manner. Jiraiya really made good on his word in that regard. It was quickly made clear that Naruto had never had any adult role model, or any consistent person in his life who could teach him any life skills. He had never been taught any values, never been explained how to treat people, or how to behave. It upset Jiraiya how easy it was to remedy many of these things, but there had never been anyone to do it in Konoha. He wondered what kind of life Naruto would have been forced to endure had he stayed in the village. In hindsight, he had to agree with Sarutobi's decision to put the young boy in his charge. The educator in him was especially angry at the blatant oversight. They had taken away Naruto's right to learn in many ways. Upset as he was, there was nothing to do but to remedy the boy, and Jiraiya did so with a passion. It became a habit for Jiraiya to point out things for Naruto, things no one had ever bothered to correct him on. You should try and hold the chopsticks like this, Naruto, it's easier this way. Shifting his grip to mimic Jiraiya, Naruto gave it a try. You're right, it's easier, I never knew. In this manner, Jiraiya began to steadily fill in Naruto's knowledge gaps. During their stay in Tani, Naruto was stuffed with so much new things to learn he was a tad bit overwhelmed. In addition to the experience of being in a foreign village, Jiraiya spent almost a month there teaching Naruto how to read and write, simple addition, subtraction, some geography over the elemental nations, and also a good bit of calligraphy. All of it knowledge and skills Naruto would have great use of later in life, according to Jiraiya. Exhausting as his workload was, Naruto also thought it was very fun, and although it became duller after the novelty wore off, he persevered to the best of his ability. Naruto became incredibly pleased with himself when he early on in their stay in Tani managed to manipulate chakra. It was a tiny feat, really. Making a leaf stick to your forehead with chakra was some of the simplest things you could do in the field. To Naruto, however, it was a big success after a long period of arduous work. More than that, it confirmed that he could actually channel chakra. He had actually felt it that time, simmering deep inside of him. Chakra. Moreover, chakra he could use and manipulate. In time, he might even get good at it. With all of this, Naruto was kept occupied. It was strange how once, Naruto had had too much spare time. Now he relished the few moments of free time that he had. He spent a big part of this time walking around in Tani. Exploring the village was a fun experience. Although he was not allowed to stay outside after dusk, Jiraiya was strict on that. The old man himself would oftentimes disappear around the evenings though. He explained it was for research purposes, for literature. Naruto swallowed that, although he was not quite sure why Jiraiya had a tendency to smell of alcohol after his research. Their month-long stay in Tani was over faster than Naruto thought at all possible. Time had never gone by so fast before in his life, yet at the same time he felt like he had done so much during that month-long period. The two feelings were strangely conflicting. Their leave-taking was unceremonious and sudden. The day before, Jiraiya had simply declared they would leave Tani at first light next morning. And they did. Naruto only brought essential items, some provisions, a few books Jiraiya had gotten him, and his writing instruments and paper. He still had his saved-up money and the last stipend the Hokage had given him safely secured in his frog wallet, Gamachan. Back on the road again, Naruto walked beside Jiraiya with a spring to his step. He was excited to see new things on their new journey. Additionally, he was curious about their next destination. This seemingly boundless energy did, thankfully for Jiraiya, wear off towards the evening. At that time he tried to work with what little chakra control he had. Naruto began to focus and slowly, very slowly, molded the necessary chakra. Suddenly the clothing around his arms and torso became very snug, the textile clung tightly to him as if it had a will of its own. Naruto released the chakra and the suction immediately disappeared. He let out a small breath and prepared to do the exercise again. Like with any other skill, the more he used chakra the better he got at it. Jiraiya recommended he do some exercises several times a day, every day. Preferably in new and creative ways every now and then. The next morning, Jiraiya woke Naruto early and introduced him to taijutsu. "Okay kid, let's see how you do with your bronze compared to your brains." Jiraiya spoke, and motioned for the still sleepy Naruto to come a bit closer. They were on a grassy field, with the rising sun giving off some much-needed heat. "Alright, like always we'll begin with the absolute basic. Look at me and do as I do. See my feet? Good, now put your hand." For the next hour, Naruto went through several different postures. He really tried his best to emulate Jiraiya, but he still missed the finer details of each stance, which annoyed him. Take for instance, weight distribution. Apparently it was important how much weight you put on each leg, and where you put it. Luckily, Jiraiya could tell with a glance when he did things wrong, and he did not hold back in correcting him. Naruto became impressed every time Jiraiya shifted stances. He did it seamlessly and faster than Naruto could blink. As for himself, he knew it would take a minute or so for him to copy just one of those, and even then he would probably miss a couple of details. Muscle memory is awesome. Renewing his focus, Naruto took a deep breath and tried to mimic Jiraiya's pristine example once more. As the two continued their travels, a pattern was starting to reveal itself. When out on the road, Naruto had his early warm-up and taijutsu lessons with Jiraiya, followed by a primitive wash, water, soap and a washcloth, and breakfast. The two of them would then quickly break camp and head out on the road. A major part of Naruto's education and theoretical skill set was developed while on the road with Jiraiya. The man had an undeniably vast well of knowledge, and he made sure to impart bucket loads of it to Naruto. When Jiraiya was not teaching theory or reviewing things his charge had been tasked to read or do, Naruto would try and familiarize himself more with his chakra, something he did when he got bored as well. When they camped for the evening, the two would cook up something tasty. After dinner, the pair would delve into their own branch of activities. For Jiraiya, this usually consisted of writing in his books, delirious chuckles and laughter often accompanied this activity. Having taken to heart Jiraiya's words on meaningless boredom, Naruto would always plan ahead and have something to do before nightfall. Like practicing taijutsu forms, chakra control exercises, improving his calligraphy, his mathematics, or some simple reading. The titles he read would vary: Rhetoric for Beginners, The Origins of Shinobi and Applications of Toxins, Poisons and Acids, to give a few examples. Naruto never developed a true passion for books, but he saw the value in them, and he would never say he disliked reading either. When staying in a small village or a city, however, the pattern would change. Naruto would sleep in for one, mostly due to Jiraiya disappearing for the vast amount of the mornings. He never revealed what for, even though Naruto asked more than once. These free mornings were a nice respite for him. Waking early every day was taxing in the long run. He would often use them to explore the nearby area, whether he was in a rural hamlet or a bustling city. There were always things to see and people to talk to. Jiraiya would usually pop in a bit after noon. The man would normally want a meal before getting around to teach him some more taijutsu. After which followed an hour of theoretical work, a break, then 2 hours of exercise and theory on chakra. After dinner, Naruto was left to do with the rest of the day as he pleased. Time began to pass, but that pattern held strong. While it's untrue to say no incident of note ever happened, that pattern would only be slightly altered and added on throughout the years spent on the road. As Naruto aged, his lessons increased in difficulty and complexity. Suddenly he was being taught combat strategy, not geography. Calligraphy was exchanged with fuinjutsu. His taijutsu sessions became increasingly tough, and soon enough Jiraiya began to add weapons into the mix. The lessons on chakra theory became more extensive and diverse with each year passing. The days bled into each other and time blurred by. 6 years later. The Hokage of Konoha was in a thoughtful state of mind. He was sitting behind his desk in the Hokage Tower while puffing his pipe absent-mindedly. He was apprehensive, to be sure, but he also felt expectant. Earlier he had been informed that a rather peculiar duo was en route to the village. A tall white-haired man, easily distinguished as Jiraiya of the Sannin. Accompanying him was a boy. He seemed completely normal and out of place in the presence of the sage. At their set pace they would arrive in 3 days' time. That was the information given to him by the perimeter scouts. It was also the reason behind his introspective state. The Sandaime had long been awaiting the return of his former student and his charge. Now that the day was finally upon him, he felt excited. The pair had gone completely off the grid almost 7 years ago now. Jiraiya had done so on his orders, and after a great deal of convincing. Jiraiya still had his spy system in place. Somehow he had found the time for it, which was the only reason Hiruzen had gotten any updates on the two over the years. Both he and Jiraiya had agreed any direct contact should be avoided. Moreover, they had also come to the conclusion that they should mention as little of Naruto as possible in their missives to each other. It left Hiruzen with a very poor understanding of the boy, now years later. However, if any of those missives had been compromised with valuable knowledge on the nine-tailed Jinchuriki, suffice to say, Hiruzen had not dared take that chance. In this case it had been better to stay uninformed. When Jiraiya arrived he would have him thoroughly debriefed. Very thoroughly. Naruto would also have to be tested, in more ways than one. Once he had all the necessary information, he would decide on a plan of action, and quickly too. Before events caught up with him. He knew very well that he couldn't hide Naruto's presence in the village from the public for very long. A few weeks at most. But with all the things he had in mind for the boy, hiding him away was not one of them. After all, Naruto was almost always the linchpin in his plans. In what manner and way would become clear by the end of the week, if not sooner. It all depended on the boy himself. How had Naruto matured? His earlier apprehension remained, but an eager anticipation had begun to take shape in him. Whatever the results, things would finally resolve themselves, in one way or another. Certainly, all the variables worried him, but at this point he was simply eager to have it done. Year-old schemes and plans were about to come out of the waterworks. In a few days he would set things in motion. He gave a small chuckle. No one would see this coming. Somewhere in Konoha, Haruno Sakura and her team was at Training Ground 7, doing their usual routine. Something she had come to dread. Sakura was a fairly normal girl, in her opinion at least. She was normal in the way that she had her strengths and weaknesses like everyone else. While she would never admit it to anyone, she could acknowledge it to herself that she wasn't particularly good at many of the practical abilities you usually see in a shinobi. Instead, she was very clever, and absorbed knowledge rapidly if given a chance. The problem, she knew, was that cleverness did very little in the field by itself. Glancing over at Sasuke, she could only marvel at his ability, sparring so evenly with Kakashi-sensei. Her teammates were both better than her in a real fight, even though Kosuke had consistently scored worse than her on tests. Sakura knew her limits, the past couple of months had taught her that much. Which was why she was doing push-ups at the moment. Coincidentally, her loathing stemmed from the pain in her arms, improving was just so painful. Not to mention useless. I haven't had any results whatsoever. Shinaro. Giving up the set, she crumpled onto the soft grass. This isn't working. I've been doing strength exercises for weeks now. But I haven't gotten any stronger. Okay, the familiar voice of her sensei drawled. Let's call this a day. I have some important news for you. Important news? Despite herself, Sakura found herself curious. Their sensei usually ended their day by simply disappearing in a shunshin. Things Sakura considered highly important was merely trivial to Kakashi, so this had to be grave indeed. Pulling herself together, Sakura walked over to Kakashi-sensei and Sasuke, who was griping for air after their intense sparring. Kosuke stepped into their circle, giving her a slight nod when their eyes met. The boy was fairly tall, but his bland face and brown hair made him forgettable, and Konoha most children in the village had the same shade of brown hair. He was okay in her books though, not that she would ever consider him a romantic interest. Her heart was only for Sasuke. Well, I guess I should start by telling you I'm proud of how much you're devoting yourself to the team, and to your own improvement. I've seen your dedication these last couple of weeks, it's completely different from before. He paused there for a moment, and gauged their faces with his single visible eye. Sakura could tell he was about to unravel the big secret. Which is why I've entered you into the upcoming Chunin exams. The three students all had surprised reactions, even Sasuke had to blink a couple of times. What? The Chunin exams? Kosuke was the first to ask. Yes, normally I would do this a bit differently, but this year will be, well, different. Different how? Sasuke asked from the side, his neutral facade was back in place. Although there was a certain intensity to his eyes which Sakura found very compelling. Well, normally I would only inform you of the exam the day before it begins. This time that's going to be a hopeless endeavor. The rest of the contestants and their Jonin commanders are coming today, to get all of the paperwork and whatnot out of the way. The real change to this exam, however, is the scale of it. This year all of the Big Five will have genin participating. Keeping the exam a secret this time wasn't really an option. With all the foreign ninja coming here, you would have figured it out pretty fast. A dumbstruck silence settled after those words. Sighing softly, Kakashi picked up an orange book intimately known to him. After a moment, Kosuke asked in a small voice, all of them? Yes, I was trying to impress the importance of this exam. The whole affair will set a very big precedent. Kakashi answered, his eyes not leaving the book. So, the 5 big nations are all gathering here, they're gonna be here today. Chunin hopefuls at least, accompanied by their teachers of course. Supposedly, even the Kage will arrive to watch the last and final stage of the exam. I guess they are too busy to be bothered with much more than that. Kakashi responded blandly. And we have to fight them? If you choose to participate. Sakura decided to get some actual answers at this point. What will the exam entail then? Explain something for once. Kakashi looked up, giving her one of his trademark smiles. He's so creepy when he does that. Not much I can tell, all you are allowed to know is this. The first stage of the exam will begin next week at noon in the new arena. You can try and participate or not, that's your choice. If you want to give this a try, then everything will be explained there to you properly next week by proctors of the exam. Just be there a bit earlier than noon. Oh, that leaves a lot to be known. How dangerous will this be, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked carefully. The fact that her sensei didn't immediately answer that question sent worrying chills up her spine. Leaving his book for a moment, he began to answer. I'll be blunt, every Chunin exam has casualties. Some more than others, just look at how Kira used to run things. But you already knew that. This year will probably have more casualties than usual, because there's a lot more genin contesting. There are of course safety restrictions placed, and outright killing is always frowned upon, especially when unwarranted. It's a waste of talent. A word of advice, you three. I nominated you guys yesterday because I know you have what it takes to make Chunin. You've shown me that already, you just have to prove it next week. If he thinks that's encouraging, he's sorely mistaken. He just told us people usually winds up dead. Kakashi looked them all in the eye, before leaving in a shunshin with a last parting word, it's your choice, think it over. Sakura felt as if some of the earlier tension evaporated with their teacher's absence. Well, that was a bomb I'd never have expected. You can say that again, Kosuke concurred. It's a good thing, Sasuke said, a slight smile on his face. There have to be some strong opponents coming, this will be very valuable. I'm sure you'll find a worthy opponent to test yourself against, Sasuke-kun, Sakura said brightly. Seeing a good opportunity, she pounced. Hey, do you want to get something to eat? We could try and come up with some strategies for the exam? She cursed herself for not managing to keep the hope out of her voice. No thanks, I've got other things to do, Sasuke answered curtly, before walking away. Rejected. Again. Why would he never say yes? Honestly, I don't know about this. Sakura turned, and was surprised to see Kosuke frowning at the spot Kakashi had vanished earlier. What do you mean? Sakura questioned him. Well, it just seems wrong to me, he said, still frowning. I mean, what did we do to get nominated for this? We completed that C rank 2 months ago. No. We just left the client on the road when we figured out he was trying to cheat Konoha. Remember? He deliberately asked for a lower protection detail than what he actually needed. Besides, when those B rank missing nin came at us, you froze just like I did. Sasuke and Kakashi did everything. That made Sakura stumble a bit in her counter-argument. You might be right about that, but we've gotten better lately. Even Kakashi said so. I've been training hard these past weeks, and I know you have too, Kosuke. Sure, we're training hard, as are every other genin trying for this exam. I just don't think what we got will be enough, and you just started taking shinobi conduct seriously a couple of weeks ago. Listen, I just don't think Kakashi is right on this one. Honestly, I can't fathom why he thinks we're even close to ready moving up in ranks. If it was only Sasuke I could understand, but all of us. He's right. Sakura conceded to herself quietly, it actually didn't make much sense. Maybe she'd known it deep down too. She wasn't Chunin material, not yet at any rate. Then why was their teacher urging them to compete in something so dangerous? He'd even gone as far as to nominate us, that's what he said. Nothing made sense. Kakashi might be a lot of things, weird, impolite, standoffish and perverted, but he'd always helped them when they needed it. He and Sasuke, both had saved hers and Kosuke's lives on the botched C-rank mission to Wave. So why would he enter them into the exam when it seemed to be such a dangerous event, one where people apparently get killed? Are you not going to enter the exam then, Kosuke? She asked. She wasn't sure if she wanted to enter herself. I don't know. We could always just forfeit if things look hopeless, I guess. But what if we get into a situation where submitting won't save us? It could happen, if we get unlucky. He shook his head. I have to think on this, maybe hear what the proctor next week has to say. If things look too hectic, I'm gonna stay out of it. It's not worth dying for. I'll be seeing you, at least we have a week to think things over. Kosuke started walking out of the lush forest, leaving Sakura alone with her thoughts at Training Ground 7. She was in no hurry when she headed home. Her thoughts on Kakashi and the exam kept churning in her head. Later that same day, road outside Konoha. A man and his apprentice walked side by side down a stone-cobbled road. The last few hours had been spent walking in a relative silence. Every now and then a blast of air would erupt from the young blonde. It ruffled the older man's clothes, but he paid no mind. His apprentice was merely experimenting, a common occurrence. When the large wooden gate leading into Konoha appeared in the distance, however, the man, one Jiraiya of the Sannin, could not hold in his dismay. A long-suffering sigh was heard. Well, there goes the last scraps of freedom in life, was his dry comment. The apprentice threw him an exasperated yet amused look. Didn't they make a new hot spring here some time ago? I hear they supposedly made the baths communal, the boy informed. Said boy looked to be in his early teens, and was dressed in a red and black long-sleeved shirt, a white shorts and a pair of black sandals. He had some distinct features, with his blonde, spiky hair and intelligent blue eyes. In a few years he would likely grow to become rather attractive, otherwise he appeared to be fairly normal. His name was Uzumaki Naruto. There was one other name he had claimed to, but for now, he was just the two former. I'm not falling for something like that again, retorted Jiraiya. Ah, a shame, was Naruto's unapologetic reply. It was getting close to dark outside. The setting sun in the horizon was making a beautiful array of orange and red colors. Looking at the far-off city walls again, Naruto couldn't help but feel a jolt of excitement run through him. He wasn't quite sure what to expect returning here, but he knew it was a statement to his progress. His teacher meant he was ready for whatever awaited him. Glancing back at Jiraiya, he noticed how the man didn't look excited in the slightest. He decided to speak up. Please, it can't be that bad. What happened to smile at your pain and laugh at your despair? You don't know. You don't know a thing. First, there's the debriefing, which will take a day if I'm lucky. Then, there's the goddamn meetings, stupid clan heads and council leaders. Almost all of them expect me to act with the propriety and the dignity that befits my name. Then there's the paperwork. Oh, the horror! The paperwork is the worst. And then. You're so melodramatic, sensei. Naruto interrupted mid-speech. And you have no sense for drama at all. Jiraiya quickly countered. I just have taste, that's all. Oh ho, what about earlier? When you stopped experimenting because a few scouts began observing us? That could have been very dramatic. Imagine their faces seeing a kid training like that. Why should I tip of that? I know elemental manipulation. You're the one who taught me not to reveal my strengths. Yes, you're very cautious. In any case, I honestly doubt any rumor of your fledgling elemental manipulation will go very far. Naruto halted to a sudden stop. Fledgling? A sudden and powerful shockwave of air scattered the many leaves and pebbles on the road away. The trees shook slightly at the force of the wind-natured chakra. Several birds took off from their nests, screeching. Jiraiya paused for a moment before he looked over his shoulder at him. So this is tasteful drama then, I take it? He asked smugly. The sudden quip caught Naruto off guard, and he struggled to find a good comeback. Jiraiya leered at his hesitance. What happened to all that caution, though? Not to complain, of course. It was quite the display of skill and power. I bet the whole station garrison felt it, wouldn't you agree? If possible, the sage was even smugger now. Does it matter? Naruto tried as nonchalantly as possible. He would not lose a battle of wits with his teacher. Unless I'm mistaken, there aren't any scouts around at the moment. The ones guarding the gate will just think the great Jiraiya-sama had an anger tantrum or something. They might have felt it, but unless they have eagle eyes they couldn't possibly have seen me at this distance. Jiraiya's previous smugness melted away into a sour expression as Naruto talked. There might have been a Hyuga. With their Jujutsu activated? Doubtful. I don't think Hyugas normally take guard shifts either. I count this as a draw, Jiraiya said and continued to walk. Naruto shrugged easily. Okay. Listen, Naruto, I'm going to clear the air with the old man. The faster I get this out of the way, the better. You have what I gave you earlier? That last bit was just paranoid precaution. Of course I have it. How could I have lost it so fast? I can never know with you, you know when to use it. I'll see you later. And with that he disappeared in a shunshin. Looking onward, Naruto felt like hurrying. So he quickened his pace and made it to the gate in short time. Strangely enough, the gate seemed almost vacant. There was a small gatehouse on the inside of the wall. He could spot two dark-haired men with chunin flak jackets. Both had just exited the gatehouse, to greet him he supposed. The security seemed a bit lackluster to him. Was the Konoha Shinobi Corps so confident in their strength? It made little sense to him. A poorly guarded front entrance was more or less an open invitation. Perhaps this served as some kind of a subtle warning, or maybe there were some hidden shinobi in the vicinity. Only two guards seemed oddly neglectful at any rate. Hi. Naruto smiled as the two approached him. The two dark-haired fellows looked at him oddly. The one on the right, with a bandage covering his nose and face in a horizontal line, decided to speak first. Hey yourself. So what? Your team left you behind or something? Naruto blinked uncomprehendingly. No. I don't have a team. Now it was their turn being confused. A genin without a team? Okay. Well, show us your shinobi license then. Where is your forehead protector for that matter? This was the one on the left. His dark hair went down in a line that covered his right eye. Well, I don't exactly have a shinobi license, or a forehead protector. Quick question, how did you figure I was a shinobi and not a civilian? That had irked him a bit. Most of the time he could pass off as an innocent boy when he wore casual clothes, but these guys had figured he was part of a team. If possible, his sudden question after claiming to not have any ID confused them even more. The two shared a subtle look. What are you on about? Civilians aren't allowed outside the gates today, security reasons. You should know that. The left one said. The bandaged man with spiky hair on the right nodded to his comrade's words. Yeah, well, I doubt this guy is from around Izumo. I'd guess he's... Wait. Naruto interrupted. Why aren't civilians allowed outside today? Is something going on? Yeah, he's definitely not from around. But Kotetsu, if he's supposed to participate, wouldn't he have been told all about the exam? This was the one on the right, Izumo, his brain filled in. The one on the left, Kotetsu, shrugged to his friend's words. Not necessarily, some villages like to keep it a secret, I know Konoha do. Most of the time it's. Okay, hold on. Naruto exclaimed in an attempt to worm himself back into the conversation. You got it right, I'm not from around. So, would you kindly tell me what the heck you're talking about? The two guards turned their attention back on him with condescending looks, the type you give a kid when he wants to be a part of the clearly adult conversation. Naruto gritted his teeth. The Chunin exam, of course. Okay, Naruto let the word out slowly. Now, try for detail? Izumo began to amend his partner. It's going to be the biggest exam ever held, kid. All of the big five are going to participate. We even had a new arena built just for the occasion. Talk about wasting money. Our old one was perfectly fit for the job. You get why we're a bit cranky, right? We've been verifying over 100 different shinobi passing through here today. 2 guys tried to weasel through. I'll never know why bandits think they can pass off as shinobi. Why are only you two stationed here? Seems illogical to me. Naruto pointed out. I don't know. We were over 30 shinobi here earlier today. As far as I know, they're all on escort detail now, accompanying the genin and their teachers. I hear each of the big villages got their own set of apartments. According to a friend of mine, pretty girls handed out the keys like they were diplomas or something. Sheesh. Oh, I see. Very clever. Both Kotetsu and Izumo looked down at the kid in mild curiosity. What is? He is the Hokage. Who in their right mind would attack this village right now? It wouldn't just be an attack on Konoha, but on all of the big five, who have all been taken in as honored guests going by your rumors. An unprovoked attack right now, just before this vastly important exam, won't be appreciated by anyone. Yes, it fits. No wonder the old man isn't bothering with more guards at the gate. The two men shared looks again, this time with small frowns on their faces. What was your name again? I didn't say. It's Naruto. Well, Naruto-san, you'll have to tell us your last name too, we're not letting you in otherwise. Yes, you are. Naruto told them in a chipper manner. But another quick question first. Where should I go to find a place to stay with the village so full? Any ideas? Izumo looked at him in pure incredulity. Kotetsu seemed more amused than anything else. The latter spoke up after a short moment of silence had passed. Okay, Naruto-san, I give. Let's say you get past us and inside. I honestly don't know a good place to crash right now, if you haven't got the pockets for a hotel? Kotetsu's eyes roamed over his clothes, which were expensive and new. Sure I do, but my stay will most likely be a lengthy one, and it seems wasteful. Izumo looked between them like the two of them were both crazy. Can't argue with that logic. Maybe you could try and see if there's an extra room where all the foreign shinobi are staying? It's cheaper than a hotel at least. Or you could try and find a place to rent if you're really going to stay for a while. But seriously, kid, tell us who you are. We don't even know where you're from. Security is pretty tight due to the upcoming exams. We can't let people through when they won't even say who they are. That's okay, you'll make an exception for me, Naruto said evenly, before he pulled away the sleeve of his right arm in a practice motion. The two guards had been wary the moment Naruto had moved to unveil something. They were surprised, however, when they noticed parts of his arm was painted in black ink. Tiny kanji had been masterfully etched into Naruto's skin, from his wrist and up to his elbow. All of the words and lines had been engraved into him with an efficient mindset, with the symbols spiraling around his arm in a sinewy and delicate pattern. Kotetsu and Izumo both stared unabashedly at the strange sight. Naruto paid no mind and carefully grabbed his own wrist. A slight stir of chakra could be felt by a very sensitive practitioner of the art. A small puff of smoke appeared, which Naruto expelled with a wave of his arm. Without further ado, Naruto held out a folded document. Kotetsu took it hesitantly, but with a curious glint in his eyes. It seemed neither of them realized exactly what he had done, or maybe they just didn't know what to ask. Which was fine by him, he didn't feel like explaining it. A few lines were written over the thick and robust paper Naruto had handed them. The two Chunin stared at it in confused awe. The red seal proved the document's authenticity. The bearer of this document is on an S-rank mission and has my authority to do as he sees fit. Sarutobi Hiruzen, Hokage of Konoha. Can't be, that's impossible. How? Just how? Naruto gave them time to read the lines a few more times before he snapped back the document. He arched an eyebrow when they turned their flabbergasted faces to him. When neither of them said anything other than the same repeated gibberish, Naruto decided he'd spent enough time chatting for one night. Well, thanks for the nice reception, but I think I'll just move on inside. Don't go blabbering about any of this to anyone, the Sandaime won't like it if you do. Slipping past Kotetsu and Izumo, whom were both looking at him with incredulous eyes, Naruto walked down the cobbled road leading deeper into Konoha. Looking at the various buildings, he wondered if there wasn't anything good to eat around. He was tired of eating his own sealed food. The next morning, Konoha Forest. Naruto woke when he heard something drop to the ground a bit to the side of him. He didn't startle or react, although his body tensed visibly. His hand slipped into the sign of the dog under his sleeping bag, a sign affiliated with wind release. Naruto was about to throw the intruder away with a blast of air when said intruder spoke up with a familiar voice. "What happened? Last I checked you preferred a good bed over a patch of grass." Jiraiya sounded chipper, an uncommon occurrence during any morning. Jiraiya was very much a night person. "I just happened to enjoy the stars yesterday." Naruto wasn't much for mornings either. After searching for half an hour the previous day, he decided to forego the bed and roof altogether. He'd been too tired to care much either way. "Aha, well, the old man wants to see you today, preferably in an hour. I imagine the two of you have a few things to talk about." Yawning, Naruto sat up groggily. It was very early. Looking up he could see a few rays of the sun squinting through the tree crowns above him. It was just after sunrise, he concluded. Jiraiya was standing over him, looking down at him from a gnarled tree root. "I guess we do, should I worry?" he asked quietly, feeling sleep-deprived. "You can never tell with that guy. Just remember that you always have a choice, kid. No matter what he's gonna ask, you can always say no." Naruto wasn't too sure about that, but refrained from saying so. They had had that discussion before. "So you think he wants something from me?" "That much is obvious, just remember you're your own person when you talk to him." Standing up, Naruto stretched. He was still in the same clothes he had worn yesterday. They were rumpled after a night's sleep. Hunching down, Naruto quickly rolled up his sleeping bag. "I'll get there, I just have a small detour in mind. Specifically, the hot springs." He wanted a bath. A standard for him after long journeys. "Aha, I'll leave you to it then," he said amiably, before jumping of the route he'd been standing on. "If you need me, I'll be staying at the Braying Mare. It's in the red light district." "Of course it is." Naruto knew better than to comment, however. "I'll keep it in mind," he said to Jiraiya, who was already walking out of the small clearing. "And don't hide out like this again. The old man had to ask me to find you. I'm not anybody's servant, least of all yours." Naruto gave a non-committal grunt that could have meant anything. A moment later, and a slight pop was heard as Naruto sealed away his sleeping bag. The walk to the bathhouse and the following soak was spent introspectively. He had to wonder about the Hokage. Naruto wasn't sure how it would be like meeting the Sandaime again, but he doubted the man would treat him as a long-lost son or nephew returning home. Nor did he desire that. Naruto was a very different person compared to his former self. He had grown on his own merits, and had changed irrevocably as a result. He was grateful to the Sandaime, but he would not let that gratitude dictate any of his decisions when the time came to make a choice. He just hoped he would be allowed to make that choice himself. Those thoughts and similar ones buzzed around in Naruto's head as he left the sauna. Now adequately clean and dressed in a new long-sleeved shirt, this one a clear white with a faded pattern of blue teardrops and aquatic animals on it. His pants were an even darker blue, and he walked in a pair of comfortable black shoes, which was a bit more formal than the regular sandals. His hair was slightly damp, and had been finger-combed into something that looked halfway stylish, halfway chaotic. Back out on the streets, Naruto's thoughts continued to consume him. He hardly paid any attention to the people he passed or bumped into, which was out of character for the usually observant boy. What do I do if he poses an ultimatum? Denying him would yield consequences either way, but shaking his head slightly, Naruto abandoned his train of thoughts. More likely than not, this would play out as a warm reunion of sorts at first. Surely the Sandaime would at least wait a few days before he sprung anything on him, good or bad. He was at the Hokage Tower anyways. Stepping inside the foyer, Naruto set out to find a receptionist. He had only taken a few steps before his name was called out. "Naruto-san? That is you, correct?" Looking to his left, outwardly calm, inwardly surprised, Naruto picked out a young female receptionist. He gave the woman a slight nod before moving towards her desk. There were other people in the room. A man in a dark cloak was sitting in a seat, clearly waiting. A couple of chunin were walking down a set of stairs at the back of the foyer. Another receptionist was on the flip side of the open hall, apparently in a very serious and quiet conversation with a rather menacing kunoichi. He was not in the wrong place. That was for sure. "Did you have any instructions regarding me?" he asked the receptionist in front of him. A name plaque on her uniform read Hiroko. The Hokage has been awaiting you, Naruto-san, you may enter the office. It was worded as an invitation, but she phrased it as if any other action was simply outrageous. Maybe it was. Would you be so kind as to show the way? He asked politely. Naturally, follow me please. She rose from her seat behind the desk and walked to the back of the foyer, where the stair he had noticed earlier was. Naruto followed her up the stairs and took a glance at Hiroko's good proportions every now and then. He was Jiraiya's apprentice after all, he had not escaped unscathed. Here we are. The door to one of the most powerful men in the elemental nations was surprisingly simple. Just a lacquered brown wooden door. He gave Hiroko his thanks, before he knocked. 2 soft raps. After a moment, a voice was heard. Come in. Tentatively, Naruto pushed open the door leading into the Hokage's office. Like the door, the room lacked any sort of indicator that this room was important. The room was moderate in size, and the walls were a simple brown color. There was a number of white canvas hanging equidistantly around the room. A virtue was written in kanji on each canvas. He noticed a shelf of pictures representing the previous Hokages. The wall at the end of the room was made up of several large windows and a glass door leading out to a plateau overlooking the village. The room was oddly humble for someone with the position of Hokage. The tobacco scent in the room only added weight to that observation. For some reason Naruto thought it oddly fitting. Upon entering, he was treated to a sight of the famed professor of the shinobi, his arms crossed behind his back and watching the village from behind the large windows. To Naruto, he seemed like the man from the stories in that moment, dressed in an immaculate white robe, and with the traditional Hokage headwear. Naruto closed the door behind him silently. I suppose a greeting is in order. It has been more than a few years since the last time we spoke after all. Welcome home, Naruto-kun. The elderly man spoke with clear and eloquent words. He did not turn away from his view of the village. You may speak freely, this conversation will not be overheard. Thank you. Naruto responded politely, although with a bit of uncertainty. This was indeed less the grandfatherly figure he had been used to as a child, and more the Hokage that ruled the village. It left him a bit unsure as to where he stood. Still, there was one thing he had to get off his chest. First of all, I'm very grateful for what you did for me. I realize it probably wasn't wholly for my benefit alone, but I'm still very grateful. I don't know if you've ever second-guessed the decision you made all those years ago, but you should know I'll always be glad things turned out the way they did. The Sandaime Hokage turned his head a bit at that. You're not angry over the fact that you had to spend your early years in solitude and neglect? Naruto stiffened a bit. We're not gonna skirt around this, it seems. His reply, however, was as level and calm as before. No, I'm not mad, precisely. But you do feel a lingering resentment to the people here, correct? The Hokage continued calmly, still observing the village outside. I don't know. I don't spend my time dwelling on the past. Naruto explained. However, I don't have a deep-set hatred for anyone here, if that's what you're asking. I think I can understand even. After the Kyuubi incident, people probably looked for someone to blame. They were scared, and I was an easy scapegoat. Maybe something could have been done differently, but it's pointless going over past mistakes. Besides, I've come to learn that Konoha isn't the only village that prejudices against demon containers. People do it all over the elemental nations, pretty much. He had been many places with Jiraiya, take Sunigakure for instance. While he never got to meet their Jinchuriki, he became acquainted with a few characters. And universal for everyone there was the almost religious fear of one Sabaku no Gaara. Naruto could put 2 and 2 together. Jinchuriki are despised and feared almost universally. It seems to be one of the few things people can agree with, whether they're from IWA or Kiri. To most people, we Jinchuriki are the demons we contain. The Sandaime turned around fully, his eyes looking at him with sympathy. And what would you do to correct this worldwide misconception? Naruto took himself time to think on the question and tried not to be distracted by the odd direction the conversation was going. He was being tested, that much he could ascertain, but in what manner? It's not that people are wrong to think of us Jinchuriki as dangerous. We are. With a Biju taking residence in you, your own state of mind depends on the seal keeping it locked up. Any of us could be really bad off for all I know, driven to madness by our demons. I don't mean to say we aren't dangerous. However, people are looking at the wrong reasons. A person doesn't lose his or hers humanity after being sealed with a Biju. When they terrorize and condemn us, they only make matters worse. We aren't the demons we keep at bay. We're the unlucky bastards who got stuck with a crappy job, but in the end we're just people too, and that's what everyone needs to understand. Indeed. Which brings us to the crux of the problem. How would you make it so people can come to your understanding? Hesitation. I don't know. The 3 words was difficult to squeeze out for Naruto. Hiruzen's face was serene, but his eyes were strangely intense. I don't think you can change a collective belief very easily, even if that belief is wrong. Maybe if you would need some kind of catalyst to prove everyone wrong by showing them the actual reality of the issue. If you could get undeniable proof, and a means to show it to everyone, then maybe. I don't see how anything like that could be possible, though. The Hokage had begun to stroke his chin in consideration of his words. You impress me, Naruto-kun. That was very intriguing thoughts. Naruto dipped his head in response and watched as the older man gingerly sat down in his padded chair. How did I do on your analyses then? A surprised look flew over the old man's face, before he broke out laughing. Naruto tried to suppress it, but a slight smile appeared anyway. Well now, you're as clever as Jiraiya said you were. The Hokage spoke after collecting himself. Apologies, I am very aware I have been direct and impolite. I'll freely admit that I was testing you just now, but I was also genuinely curious about your answers. I don't think you lied. In my experience, men tend to lie a great deal more if under pressure. You pressured me just now? To Naruto's dismay, the sentence came out as a question instead of a statement. The Hokage gave a slight smile. Lies also become far more transparent when they come from someone under pressure. You spoke the truth just now, the truth as you saw it, but the truth nonetheless. I see. And he did. Naruto was a few months shy of 13, but in some ways he was far older than that. He knew he was a clever lad, and when he was at his most composed he could talk people twice his age into walking in circles. Yet, here in this room he felt hopelessly out of depth. The sudden onslaught of strange questions from the professor himself had left him disconcerted. He had expected a few pleasantries exchanged, how have you been, and such. Evidently not. The Hokage must have seen some of his thoughts in his expression, because his next words were eerily similar to his own thinking. I realize this is probably not how you envisioned this meeting. Not really, no. Sarutobi nodded before he gestured for Naruto to take a seat in front of the large mahogany desk. The Hokage started to dig around in the drawers for something. I hope I have not upset you too much, Naruto-kun. Right now, however, I would like to hear how you have been these past years. I heard a great deal from Jiraiya yesterday, but I would like to hear some things from your perspective as well. The Sandaime eased back into his seat, having found an old pipe which he quickly filled with tobacco. Taking the offered seat, Naruto gave the Sandaime a questioning look. My perspective? You have been gone for almost 7 years, Naruto-kun. I'd like to know how it's been like. Tell me of your studies. Jiraiya tells me you are at a very advanced level in Fuinjutsu, for instance. Nodding along to the request, Naruto began to talk about his life on the road with Jiraiya. It was odd at first, he had never told anyone very much about himself. Not any truthful things, at least. Secrecy had been paramount to Jiraiya, and he had drilled the need for subtlety into Naruto early on. He had always kept his real identity hidden, so it felt strange to be truthful for a change. From there their discussion spiraled into several different topics. Where had he been, and what was his impression of the elemental nations? How had his training with Jiraiya progressed? Sometimes they talked about non-consequential issues, but their topics usually swerved back to something purposeful again after a few minutes of idle chat. Over the conversation, Naruto noticed how curious the Kage in front of him was about his personal thoughts and viewpoints. Naruto never brought up what had happened 5 months ago in Odogakure, and although the Sandaime must have been briefed by Jiraiya, he didn't mention it either. It took nearly an hour, but eventually, the Hokage seemed satisfied. I must say, this conversation has been a real pleasure. But I believe it's time we moved on to more important matters. There is a question I will have you answer for me. I want you to think hard on it. Please be completely honest, Naruto-kun. I can do that. Naruto replied levelly and sat up straighter in the leather chair. Do you want to become a shinobi? What? Naruto asked, baffled at the question. But the Hokage didn't repeat himself, he merely looked at him expectantly. Was he serious? What kind of question is that anyways? It's not like I have much choice. It might not look like that to you, but you do have a choice, Naruto. We always have. No, he replied in a level tone. He did not sound like a young boy in that instance. Becoming a shinobi had always been a matter of when for Naruto. I never had much of any choice. I was forced to become a shinobi the moment my father used me in his seal. That is where you are wrong, Naruto. No matter how inconceivable the idea may seem to you. I am fully prepared to have the ID papers of a young civilian boy written out, a child orphaned by the unfortunate incident almost 13 years ago. A new name, a new home. It's something very possible considering no one here knows the real you. You would glide seamlessly into our society here, and none would be the wiser. Surprising even himself, Naruto laughed. Oh, that's funny, then what have I been doing these past years? All that training for what, so I can defend myself? Be straight with me here, Naruto said, mildly annoyed by the deception. I am being truthful, but you won't accept it. You leaving the village was a desperate move on my part, one I have paid fully in the years after your departure. Realistically speaking, by the end of the year I am not going to be the Hokage anymore. Seeing the surprise spread over Naruto's face, the Sandaime smiled slightly. What? Did you think I could send our own Jinchuriki on his merry way without any repercussion? That is not the case. My enemy's efforts in deposing me are finally catching up. This Chunin exam will in all likelihood be the last I will host. The news had more of an impact on Naruto than he would like to admit. He might be disagreeing with the man at the moment, but he was still a person Naruto admired and looked up to. Maybe even more now, seeing how much getting him away from Konoha had cost. Before he managed to form some kind of reply, the Sandaime continued on undisturbed. Let's not get too sidetracked. You leaving Konoha was important in many ways. Mostly because the environment here was far too toxic for a young child. Your solitude in particular scared me. You were always alone, Naruto-kun. You undergoing training while away was more of a second thought than anything, and I certainly never imagined you to overshoot even Jiraiya's expectations. I've heard his opinions, and I'm more than merely impressed. Ultimately though, your well-being was my priority. Why do you think I had Jiraiya be the one to take care of you? You can be sure it was not because he was easily available, on the contrary. I had to undertake extreme measures in order to get him on board. My safety. Naruto supplied when it seemed like the old man wanted him to speak. Yes, but more importantly, I chose Jiraiya because you needed a fatherly figure. Someone to express warmth around you, which is why I ruled out any of my other subjects. Although many of them would have leapt at the chance to raise our former leader's son, I was never able to ascertain if they could give you more than just protection. Naruto shook his head. That's all very good, but Jiraiya taught me more than just how to defend myself. Did he tell you we finished the entire academy curriculum in the first year away? And we didn't stop there, we just kept going. If anything, we amped our pace. You can't pass that off as a second thought. Don't even pretend that's not for a purpose. Chuckling quietly, Hiruzen smiled in good humor. I believe you are underestimating Jiraiya here, Naruto-kun. What I instructed was to make sure you could graduate the Genin exam when you came back, in case you wanted to pursue a career as a shinobi. Needless to say, he went above and beyond that. From my understanding, he wants you to be the best you can be. Naruto had no noticeable reaction to the old man's words. Years later, and here we are. Now, would you want to pursue a shinobi career? Conflicting emotions surfaced within Naruto. What did he truly want? Had he ever stopped to actually ponder on that question before? Naruto had never desired the blood-stained life of a shinobi, yet he loved the shinobi arts with a passion. How was he supposed to live his life as anything but the man he had trained so hard to become? Naruto's vibrant blue eyes dulled as he turned introspective. In either case, he had doubts. How could the Sandaime claim to protect him when his reign was about to end? There was just no way. 2 months ago, Jiraiya had warned him about people trying to locate and abduct Jinchuriki. They were a secretive group with a sinister agenda. Naruto had been told to run if he ever saw black cloaks with red clouds. With people like that out there looking for him, declining the Hokage here seemed woefully stupid. I do want to pursue a shinobi career, yes. The old ruler looked beyond pleased at that. Slowly, after shifting the pipe in his mouth around, the man gave him a nod. Naruto, however, wasn't quite finished. I can't live the life you suggested at first, and trying to pretend I can is foolish. It's just not doable. Because of what is sealed inside me, I will never be left alone. Sooner or later I will be forced to fight. The difference in accepting reality is this: I will walk willingly into my fights, and I will walk out alive because I was better. The Sandaime nodded. In that case, there is only one thing for me to ask. How far are you willing to go? As far as it takes. The Sandaime nodded appreciatively. Let me rephrase, what kind of shinobi will you be? A hunter nin? Umbu? A Jonin sensei maybe? Do you have any aspirations? The Hokage spoke with his usual calm assertiveness, but the way his hand tightened around his pipe made Naruto think the question was a loaded one. Never really considered that, Naruto lied carefully. I didn't think I would have a formal position in your ranks. Always thought I would be more like a weapon, something to pull out from the scabbard when needed. You give me no credit. Despite the words, the sandaime was smiling slightly. He noticed how I didn't give a straight answer, not surprising. Very well, I think we have discussed enough for one day. Even so, I will have you return here early tomorrow, in order to run you through a number of tests. I want to gauge your abilities properly. I trust you have found a place to stay? Sort of, something more permanent would be appreciated. Some of the participants of the exam receive housing free of charge. Another young man taking up residence would hardly attract much attention. Would you mind some neighbors? I think I can manage. Naruto agreed, and he knew their meeting was over. He rose from his chair in a swift motion. On his way out, he couldn't help but throw a glance at the shelf he had eyed earlier. His eyes quickly found the picture of the man he was looking for. Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, reputed slayer of the Kyuubi. He'd never actually seen a picture of him. They really did look alike. Peeling his eyes away, he opened the simple door leading out of the office. Fair warning, Naruto-kun. Now that I know your stance, I intend to have you compete in the exam. Be prepared. Cocking his head to the side, Naruto gave a chill smile not at all fitting on a face so young. Yeah, I kinda figured. Noon, Konoha Hokage Tower. Naruto left the Hokage Tower somewhat content with the resluts. It remained to be seen exactly what the Hokage wanted from him. Having him participate in the Chunin exam was in all likelihood just the first move on Hiruzen's part. The sandaime probably had a specific reason for including him in the exams. It could be he wanted some of the competition eliminated. It wasn't too much of a stretch of the imagination, but Naruto hoped that was not the case. First things first, he had to locate his new rooms. Hiroko, the receptionist from that morning, had stopped Naruto on his way out to hand him a pair of identical keys to his new condo, which, apparently, was somewhere on the outskirts of the residential district. The privileged Big Five got to share a large apartment complex, while the less recognized villages had to rent their own places. Naruto was hardly familiar with Konoha, but he was used to finding his way around. His thoughts still lingered on the things he and the sandaime had discussed as he wandered down the cobbled streets of Konoha. People passed him on all sides, some urgently, others without a care in the world. Naruto was aware of their proximity, but at the same time, he hardly took note of them. No one recognized him, not yet. Engrossed as he was in his own thoughts, it was a testament to his awareness that he noticed it. A minuscule chakra flex, it vanished as quickly as it came. Naruto had barely felt it. But he had felt it. That was odd, considering Naruto was not a particularly good sensor. In fact, he was awful. He knew the theory behind the skill well enough, but he simply didn't have the chakra system to be any good at the art. After experimenting with his teacher, Naruto had drawn a few conclusions. Firstly, he could only ever sense Jiraiya use moderately powerful techniques. Anything below B ranked was nigh on impossible for him to detect unless it had an unusually large chakra drain. Secondly, his chakra sensing capabilities had a very limited range. If Jiraiya stood a good stone throw away, Naruto could only get a feel of Jiraiya if he used the most zapping techniques in his arsenal. With that taken into consideration, Naruto was equal parts wary and curious to realize someone was channeling rather large amounts of chakra in the vicinity. His head swiveled around only to stare straight into one of the many wooden buildings that dotted Konoha. The source was either somewhere inside, or on the other side of the building. Naruto's curiosity won out. He walked up to the house and through some agile climbing, he was able to reach the rooftop without any chakra usage. Although good sensors were exceedingly rare, Naruto figured he had nothing to lose in being careful. He didn't want this mystery person to get the bead on him before he did, so he refrained from using any chakra. He didn't expect a fight, of course, but this was how he'd been trained to operate in unknown areas and situations, and this qualified. Naruto decided to cloak his chakra presence before moving up ahead. Eliminating his presence was one of the few things that had taken a long time for Naruto to get a good grasp of, and it still made him uncomfortable when he used the trick. It even became painful if he kept using it over a long period of time. Shrinking your chakra presence was something Naruto likened to squeezing down on a foam ball with as much force as possible in order to make it smaller. His foam ball just happened to be ridiculously large, and it really didn't like staying small. Hence the pain if he kept the technique going for more than a few minutes at a time. He would manage this just fine though, no sweat. The curious boy took a few silent steps towards the edge of the roof and hunched down to take a good look. Interesting. A few minutes earlier, nearby. Kosuke, what are you doing here? Haruno Sakura asked, slightly surprised to find her teammates standing in front of three kids who looked like they still belonged in the academy. Upon hearing his team's only female member, Kosuke turned around. Oh, hi Sakura. It's these kids won't leave me alone, this small fry in particular. Kosuke nodded at the tallest of the three. A boy with dark hair clothed in a silly cape and hat. He says he has to defeat me in order to become strong enough for the Hokage title. That's right. I have to defeat lots of people in order to get strong, yelled the young boy. And since you refuse to, I'll make you fight me. With that, the cape boy jumped at Kosuke, who was so surprised that he forgot to put up a guard. As a result, Kosuke got a hand smacked in his face. A set of small fingers snatched at his forehead protector, and actually managed to yank it off him. The kid jumped away hurriedly, before posing with the headband waving around. The small boy grinned victoriously at Kosuke before saying, "My name is Konohamaru, and I'll be Hokage someday, you know." Staring at the boy incredulously, Kosuke became annoyed. "Did you just take my forehead protector? Ha, if you want it back, then you have to fight me for it." Konohamaru grinned again, as if he'd already won their supposed fight. Then he turned on the spot and ran down an alleyway, his two friends right at his heels. "Wait up, Konohamaru-kun," Moegi shouted. "Yeah, wait up," Udon added in. Looking back at Sakura, Kosuke asked silently if that just happened. The pink-haired girl had a hard time hiding her smile. "Let's go after them, we can't have you get into trouble for losing your forehead protector so close to the exam," Sakura said, trying to act mature. Grateful, Kosuke followed her when she jogged after the three academy students. Luckily, they only had to cut a single corner to find them. Unluckily, the situation the two of them stepped into was not a good one. "Let me go, you big brute," yelled Konohamaru, still clinging tightly to the forehead protector even as he was dangling by the fabric of his cape. The offender was a boy over twice Konohamaru's size. Konohamaru's two friends stood at the side, looking on in fright. "Brute? Says the pipsqueak rudely running into me," said the large teen. For all Sakura and Kosuke could tell, he really was big and brutish. He wore black slacks, with a dark hooded cowl. To go with this imposing look, he had painted dark purple lines across his cheeks and beneath his eyes. Additionally, he had a large bandaged object strapped to his back as a backpack. "Leave the kid be, Kankuro, we're not here to mess with snotty brats," said a haughty blonde-haired girl who had been standing off to the side. She was pretty, Kosuke thought, with her hair done up in 4 buns at the back of her head. Although she had told her friend off, she was nonetheless eyeing Konohamaru with clear distaste. Then the big guy, Kankuro, noticed the two Konoha genin coming to a stop in front of them. Don't you teach your kids any civility around here?" he questioned them in a gruff voice, now completely ignoring the struggling Konohamaru. "We don't manhandle children when we think they did something wrong," Sakura said in a surprisingly quiet and level voice. Looking at her, Kankuro frowned. "How else would you discipline them?" he asked condescendingly, but also with an undertone of genuine curiosity. "You're here for the exam, right?" Kosuke asked. He had been scared to voice any immediate objection, but Sakura's clear stance had given him some courage. Looking at Kankuro's forehead protector, he realized it had the symbol of Suna engraved on it. "I don't know how you do it out in the desert, but in Konoha, hurting a child is unacceptable." As it turned out, that was the wrong thing to say. Kankuro's face suddenly darkened. Konohamaru quickly stopped all of his attempts to squirm out of the older boy's grip. "The fuck are you on about? I'm holding him by his silly cape. How is this violence? If I wanted to be violent, he'd be far worse off." Slightly intimidated, both Kosuke and Sakura became quiet. "Is this really how you raised them here? I thought Konoha was supposed to be one of the stronger villages out there. This is disappointing." "Just let him down, and we'll all go our separate ways," Kosuke tried to reason. He didn't want to admit it, but the big Suna boy scared him. Surprisingly, the blonde Kunoichi supported him, although in a very roundabout manner. "Let's just go, Kankuro, we have to get to the apartments at any rate." Looking over at his teammate, Kankuro considered her words. He didn't want to anger his sister. "But this could be good practice, Temari. Some insight into our competition won't hurt." At this, Kankuro directed a rather savage smile at Kosuke and Sakura. Then a sharp and sudden pain sprung up in his wrist. He dropped Konohamaru and automatically clutched his arm. Konohamaru rolled and hobbled over to his two friends. Both sides of the gathered crowd was surprised when a figure suddenly landed in between them with trained poise. Uchiha Sasuke glared at the two foreign shinobi in front of him. He flipped a stone in the air and caught it smoothly. "You know, if you want to fight, you should try goading someone actually worth fighting." "Thanks, Sasuke." No one picked up Kosuke's dry comment. "Ha," Kankuro laughed. "I hope you can do more than throw stones." "You'll find out in a minute," replied a confident Sasuke, who was already amped for a fight. Ugh, all this testosterone is making me nauseous, said a disgruntled Temari. Sakura silently agreed. Indeed, sister. Our idiot sibling has a habit of diving into trouble head first, a quiet and coarse voice proclaimed. Sakura and Kosuke stared wide-eyed as a red-haired boy appeared between his two teammates in a small whirlwind of sand. This new addition to the steadily growing crowd had a pair of dark ringed eyes that readily told you he would kill a puppy if it so much as looked at him wrong. Kankuro, cease with your nonsense, or die. Ah, yes, of course. The rapid turnaround in behavior left some of the Konoha residents slack-jawed. However, it was not just Kankuro. Temari had become pale, and was looking away from her red-haired teammate determinedly. Somehow, Kosuke didn't think the Suna kid was making idle threats. Humph, I'll get a chance to fight you during the exam, I suppose? Sasuke said, disappointed to see his opponent so meek all of a sudden. And you are? Asked the newest arrival, his voice void of any emotion. Uchiha Sasuke. Who are you? Sabaka no Gaara. I will enjoy killing you, I think. Taken aback, Sasuke considered his would-be killer more closely. He didn't look very athletic or impressive. Actually, the only concrete thing this Gaara had going for him was a sinister aura of sorts. The gourd on his back probably had some purpose, but Sasuke couldn't see how it could be of any use in a fight. He wagered he could take out this guy in a few moves or so. Gaara snorted, but it was not out of amusement. Whenever I threaten, it's always the same with you confident types. First, you get confused or angry, then you begin thinking, you start to consider whether I'm capable or not. Eventually, you come to the inane conclusion that I'm bluffing, or that I'm simply overconfident. That pattern never fails. Please indulge me. Mother is hungry. It occurred to Sakura then, that this boy was actually not wholly sane. Suddenly afraid again, Sakura unconsciously positioned herself in front of Konohamaru and his two friends. Gaara gave her a cold look. That's also a very frequent reaction. He noted disdainfully. I don't really buy it, Sasuke stated. Give me your best attack, and we'll see if you have some actual prowess to back up all that talk. A sudden quiet enveloped the assembled group. Sakura looked at Sasuke in worry even as she was cheering him on in her head. Kosuke for his part was annoyed that his teammate couldn't walk away from anything remotely resembling a fight. Both Kankuro and Temari quickly lost their initial shock at the bold declaration. They now looked at Sasuke as if he was already dead. Prowess? Does that even matter? What matters is that I have power, more so than you do, Uchiha Sasuke. Your idiotic challenge is accepted. You have only yourself to blame for your death, as you were the one to challenge me. Removing your existence will be gratifying. TCH, like I said, give me your worst. Despite the contemptuous reply, Sasuke was staring at Gaara with an unusual intensity. He was excited, Sakura realized with a slight exasperation. Why do boys only think about fighting? Shinaro. Gaara raised his right arm and both siblings immediately moved several feet away from him. You guys back up a bit too. That was Sasuke. Sakura complied hurriedly and ushered the three academy students back down the cobbled street. Kosuke walked with them without taking his eyes off the two figures facing each other down. A small halo of sand was now swirling around Gaara and Sasuke stood ready to jump into action. Suddenly, the lid on Gaara's gourd popped open and thick streams of sand slithered out with an alarming speed. Concerned, Sasuke jumped backwards when he saw the sand speed after his legs. This was not just some kind of earth manipulation, but something else entirely. Does he have some kind of Kekkai Genkai? Then, the sand blurred past Sasuke with a ridiculous speed before mauling him in the back with enough strength to propel him towards Gaara, and right into a large fist of sand who promptly closed itself around the young boy in a killer squeeze. The horrified spectators heard several groaning pops. Frowning slightly, Gaara released the death grip and was unsurprised to see the splintered remains of a thick log fall to the ground. Sasuke appeared several meters away from Gaara and his deadly sand-made appendages, but not wholly unscathed. He had a clear limp and a grimace in place. Despite that, Sasuke seemed more focused on his enemy than his own well-being. You can freely manipulate sand? Yes. Please die now, was Gaara's cold response. The swirling sands began to coalesce into a hand twice as large as Sasuke, who quickly realized he had to dodge and find some way to distract Gaara long enough to close their distance. He was confident he could end the cocky redhead if he got in close. Sasuke jumped away hurriedly, funneling chakra to his legs in order to amp his speed. He intentionally jumped early in order to dodge with a good margin, so Sasuke was astounded when he felt the air at his side buffet before the sand construct slammed into the spot he had just been standing in. Sakura gasped loudly at the near hit, while Kosuke paled as the seriousness of the duel in front of them really hit home. Hey you! Kosuke poked Konohamaru, but not sharply. When he got the young boy's attention, he told him in a very serious tone, take your friends and find someone, like a Jonin or a Chunin, anyone who can stop them. Konohamaru, surprisingly, did not need any convincing and quickly took his friends by the neck before bolting away. Meanwhile, Sasuke had been able to deduce two things. 1. The sand under the redhead's control was definitely a whole lot faster than he was. 2. The bastard was really trying to kill him. Gritting his teeth, Sasuke decided to go all out as well. A deep red color overtook his normally dark eyes, and a single black tomo swirled into life in each eye. Acting quickly, Sasuke dashed to the side and dodged two sneaky tendrils of sand in the course of the action. When a wave of sand approached him from the direction he had been running in, Sasuke made a split-second decision to jump away. Indecision got you killed. That was one of the few things he'd learned from sparring with Kakashi. It was important to make a move, and then commit to it. Any hesitance in the field would get you killed, eventually. This time, unfortunately, Sasuke's attempt to stay a step ahead of his opponent backfired. Gaara immediately struck with all of his appendages against the now airborne Uchiha. The raven-haired boy didn't have time to regret his earlier move. Instead, he spun around in the air and kicked down with his leg against the closest of the intercepting sand creations. Sasuke had hoped to use the kick as a way to launch himself away from the imminent danger. Instead, his foot was absorbed into the sand, effectively stuck. Recognizing the danger he was in, Sasuke adeptly put his hands together in order to use another kawarimi. However, just as he was about to finish the last sign, a vein of sand grabbed his wrist away, which ended the jutsu prematurely. Sasuke hit the ground roughly, before another two appendages enveloped his last free limbs. Slowly, they began to pull him down the cobbled street. Sasuke struggled violently with a panicky need to get free. It proved futile, and a very real fright began to well up in him, as Gaara dragged him towards an impending death. Wait! A shaken Sakura shouted out, and she took several shaking steps forward. You won! What are you doing to him? Sabaku no Gaara looked up from his squirming prey. The gaze he gave Sakura was enough to make her stumble. Why do you care? He asked in his gravelly voice. Why? Why wouldn't we? He's our teammate. Our friend. Sakura cried. She was very close to actual tears at this point. Kosuke quickly moved up to her side and nodded fervently to her words, too scared to voice his own thoughts. Both Kankuro and Temari stood several meters away and watched the proceedings stoically from the shadows of a tall brick wall. Gaara's hard gaze did not soften as Sakura spoke. Instead, it intensified. How inane. Friendship? Are you willing to die for your friend, then? He challenged me, and as the victor, taking his life is not only my choice, but my right. Dread welled up in Sakura as the cold words from the foreign boy hit her. But why would you? Sakura's next words died in her mouth when she saw sand swirl and coalesce into a sharp lance above Gaara. The tip was aimed straight at Sasuke, who immediately paused his struggling to look up at the cone-shaped spear of sand with wide eyes. His single Tomo Sharingan saw no escape from this. And no, don't do this! Sakura screamed hysterically. She tried to run and position herself between Sasuke and Gaara, but Kosuke grabbed hold of her from behind to restrain her. She couldn't get out of his grip, much as she tried. Angry and desperate, Sakura gave the two Suna genin in the background a harsh glare. And what are you two doing? Are you just going to stand there and watch him do this? Sakura shouted at them, all the while trying to kick and scratch her way out of Kosuke's grip. Sakura was surprised when the girl with the odd pigtail hairstyle took a hesitant step forth. Oh, Gaara, don't you think you've made your point now? You won, you always do. You don't have to kill anyone. He's just a kid, he didn't know any better. Despite her own insecurity, Temari was doing her best to hold up a brave front. Be quiet, Nei-san, or I'll kill you too. The sentence was said in the same cold and uncaring manner. Temari gasped inaudibly, and her eyes widened a fraction in surprise and fear. She took a step backwards and looked away. Kankuro put a hand on her shoulder, but she shrugged it off. Sakura was shocked at Gaara's casual threat to his teammate, and apparently, his own sister. He's evil, she concluded, and surprisingly, that knowledge calmed her somewhat. At least she understood Gaara's bloodlust now. There's no reason for this, we didn't fault him somehow. He's just insane. Well then, it's time you died, Uchiha Sasuke. She's getting impatient. No! Wait! Sasuke shouted from his incapacitated position. I have to do something, you can't kill me yet. There is something that I have to accomplish. Gaara ignored him. A slight wave of his pointer finger had the hovering lance of sand launched forward in a burst of speed. Sakura screamed, and Sasuke watched the spear approach with an odd feeling of detachment. Really? Is this it? Was his exact thoughts right then. It happened in the span of a second. A figure appeared in the projectile's path and struck out with an open palm. Everyone became dumbstruck when a loud shockwave of air ripped the spear's composition apart. Tiny grains of sand scattered around by the resulting gusts of wind. Everyone stared unabashedly at the unknown figure. He was blond, and stood across of Gaara, whom he was considering with a pair of clear blue eyes. His attire was pretty casual. A white long-sleeved shirt with some obscure patterns, dark blue pants and a pair of black lace shoes. His hair was a spiky mess that somehow fit him very well, but the bangs that fell just short off his eyes hinted to some vanity. Sabaku no Temari frowned and sharpened her gaze at the powerful display of wind manipulation. That was no jutsu, he somehow created that much pressure through only raw nature manipulation. Back in Suna, the pigtailed girl experienced a certain level of fame due to her unusually good grasp of the wind release. Many considered her a prodigy at the art, which was why she was known by the title of Wind Mistress in Suna. Because of those talents, she could analyze and appreciate the blonde boy's skills far more thoroughly than anyone else present. What stumped her was the way he had done it. With no hand signs, with no specified jutsu in mind at all, just raw wind chakra expelled with great force. She was impressed, of course. She could only do minor things with her wind chakra unless she used signs or her battle fan, like putting out a candlelight. But the question in her remained, how? The boy's method was very cumbersome in the way that it was so chakra intensive, and ridiculously difficult. She had no idea how much training he had gone through in order to reach such a high wind affinity. He wasn't even all that old, he looked to be just a year or two shy of her own age. Despite the impossibility of it, Temari really wanted to learn how to do it. To have the wind beckoning at your fingertips seemed so wonderfully useful and liberating. She was brought out of her own mind when her violent sibling came to himself. Just what? Gaara spoke up menacingly. Do you think you are doing? I don't know, was I doing anything? Was the quick and level reply. Gaara stared at the blonde, now completely flummoxed. One moment, I'm just gonna cut this guy loose. Huh! Gaara stared, as his opponent turned around and bent down in front of the held-down Sasuke. Wait, his opponent turned his back to him? What? Naruto molded some wind-natured chakra and cut away Gaara's sand-made limbs from Sasuke's form. Kosuke openly gaped at the sheer indifference the blonde-haired person displayed, and Sakura was not far from emulating him. Both Kankuro and Temari simply stared unblinkingly at the blonde, baffled at the complete lack of wariness. As Naruto removed the last restraint, he gave Sasuke a look that clearly said get up. The Uzumaki then rose up to face Gaara again, who had been too dumbstruck to even consider attacking while Naruto had exposed his back. Are either of you going to insist on fighting anymore? Naruto asked the two boys. Sasuke, who had just gotten back on his feet, eyed Gaara with tight-set eyes. He tried to kill me just now, I can't let that slide. Remove yourself. Gaara glared at Naruto. I will kill you afterwards. Sakura was about to interject several words of her own, but she swallowed them when Naruto spoke up. Uchiha Sasuke, Konoha's last living member of the famed Sharingan-wielding clan. Sabaku no Gaara, son of the Yondaime Kazekage. Are either of you aware of the consequences this little spat of yours could have? Both boys stilled slightly, and they turned to look at him. Why should I care? Gaara asked uncaringly. Naruto didn't miss a beat at the cold and unconcerned voice. Well, in the event that you kill Sasuke, how do you think the Kazekage will try to appease Konoha? In the most likely scenario, the Kazekage will just hand you over to the top brass here in order to stave off war. I hear he's not exactly very fond of his youngest son. Gaara showed no outward sign to Naruto's words, save for a slight crease that appeared between his eyes. Even so, why do you care? This is none of your business. A slight pause. Naruto's next words, while not cold, were considerably chiller in comparison to his earlier tone. It sure is, I'm a meddlesome person, you see. Once the Chunin exam begins, there's going to be a whole lot of bodies piling up unless I find a way to stop Gaara. Naruto realized. Gaara continued to stare at the weird boy with bloodshot eyes. Gaara couldn't understand him. All his life, people had always been fearful of him. This one wasn't, and it was making him anxious. And if he wasn't, so be it. Mother's hunger was getting unmanageable. This boy would fear him soon enough. You two can finish this in the arena, there's no point in making a mess here. Sasuke looked reluctant to back down, which was pure idiocy of course, but Naruto kept himself from thumping him. Don't you owe me a debt now, Uchiha-san? At least back down when I tell you to," Naruto pointed out when the dark-haired boy continued to stare at Gaara with intense eyes. The Uchiha did as he was told when that unpleasant fact was made apparent to him. "Ugh, as long as he doesn't demand anything too ridiculous, I guess I can manage. He did save my life, after all." Meanwhile, Gaara prepared to lash out at Naruto's distracted form, but it was not to be. "What's happening here?" A pair of Chunin appeared some way down the street. "We've got a witness report saying a fight was taking place here, a life and death scenario." Naruto stepped forward with a practiced walk and gave the two nondescript shinobi a confused smile. "Life and death? Really? Well, no harm done here. Just a bit of pre-exam nerves getting out." The two stopped and shared a suspicious look. "Is that so?" "It is. What did you hear anyways? Wait, don't tell me it was the 3 academy students? They did seem a bit scared by some of the jutsu we practiced." Naruto's question devolved into a series of mutterings, which the two Chunin caught easily. Their eyes scoured the street and the face of every person there thoroughly, before both left with a last parting comment to practice elsewhere. Naruto received a few looks again. "What?" he asked, slightly affronted. "A shinobi has to be able to lie convincingly, that's one of the first things we're taught, right?" A small scoff came from Sasuke, who was eyeing Naruto with both gratitude and annoyance at the same time. "Find me when you want your favor cashed in," he said simply, before he turned around to leave. "I suggest you two follow him," Naruto told the two Konoha genin. They followed his advice quickly. The pink-haired girl even thanked him for saving her teammate, which was an appreciated gesture. Pink girl +1. With that out of the way, he turned towards the Suna genin, whom were already receding away. Naruto quickly walked up to them. "Well, let's get going. I for one want to leave this street," he spoke up from behind the 3. "You're not coming with us." Temari had initially spoken up to deny him. However, once Naruto swiveled his cerulean blue eyes at her, the statement turned into something more along the lines of a question. "Yes, I am," Naruto proclaimed confidently. "And Gaara, if you're planning to kill me, quit it." Gaara looked at Naruto in surprise, while his siblings glanced betwixt the two of them warily. "He felt my bloodlust earlier," Gaara guessed. "I will wait until the exam." The reed head lied effortlessly. He was also a good liar, mostly because he had no moral dilemma in doing so whatsoever. "Good, because truth be told, I have an ulterior motive in wanting to go with you." The 3 Suna shinobi straightened, intrigued as to what this mysterious and quirky genin could have as a motive to go with them. They couldn't imagine his intentions. "You see, I need to find these apartments everyone's talking about." 2 sets of blinking eyes and a dead stare was the response to that. Kankuro was the first to vocalize his surprise. "You're joking, right?" "Ah, so this is the place. Not too shabby." Naruto and the 3 Suna siblings stood in front of a 3-story apartment complex. It was brand new, and it showed in the gleaming glass-paneled walls. Whereas most of Konoha's buildings were simple in nature and usually built with wood, the block almost looked a bit out of place with its metallic sheen and glass panels. The discrepancy wasn't too noticeable, however, since the building was placed very remotely on the outskirts of the village. How come no one told you about it? You have a team leader, right? He should have briefed you," Temari asked curiously. Her brothers walked at her side in silence. "I'm a bit of a special case in that regard," Naruto responded carefully, fully aware of how unsatisfactory that answer was. He was pleased that the girl had taken to ask a few questions, though. She and Kankuro had both acted very meek during the admittedly short walk to the apartments. Gaara seemed to have that effect on them. Honestly, the 3 of them were more dysfunctional than a drunk Jiraiya surrounded by pretty girls. Well, maybe not that bad. "Where's your room, then?" Naruto asked. He really did want to know where the 3 stayed, but he also wanted to divert some attention away from himself. Years of hiding in plain sight had made Naruto a closed-off person. Secrecy was as much a habit as it was a precaution for Naruto. "Up the stairs," Temari answered after having taken a quick peek at Gaara first. She then pointed towards a set of stairs that led to the 2nd story of the building. "It's the door farthest down the corridor." The foursome ascended the stairs together, but Naruto stopped when he came to a door with a big 9 affixed to the wall. The others stopped when they noticed Naruto's sudden halt. Gaara frowned in annoyance at the delay while Temari and Kankuro looked at him in curiosity. Naruto paid them no mind. He had a hunch. A nimble hand quickly dug up the keyring he had been given earlier that day. A set of identical keys hung from the chain, but also attached was a round, blank coin. He flipped it around and was pleased to see the number 9 on it. Naruto couldn't help but to give a small snort, mildly amused. The old man was probably having a laugh right about now. Number 9? Really? He turned to the others, who were looking at him in polite confusion. Save for Gaara, who was now standing outside number 7, 2 doors away. The Suna Jinchuriki was glaring at him. Found my flat, Naruto declared with a notably more forceful smile. Looks like we'll be pretty close neighbors. Gaara's oppressive stare did not lessen in the slightest. That confirms it. My new and psychotic neighbor wants to murder me. Great. He coughed slightly and opened his door. So, I guess I'll be seeing you guys around then? He asked in an attempt at politeness. Kankuro gave him a stiff nod, and Temari forced a smile. Naruto walked into his apartment with a small wave at the three. Ugh, awkward. Naruto leaned into the door behind him, decidedly relieved to be away from Sabaka no Gaara. The Ichibi Jinchuriki was even worse off than he'd already assumed. The fact irked a nerve in him. Were there no decent Fuinjutsu specialists in Suna? Arg. In any case, I have to find a way to get a good look at his seal. It could be faulty or deteriorating for all I know. He would have to be quick about it too. Something about the rings under Gaara's eyes told him the boy could literally snap and lose it any passing day. The real question, however, was why did Suna send a clearly unstable Jinchuriki to the exams? Konoha and Suna were allies. It made no sense. Naruto shook his thoughts away and instead appraised his new quarters. The place was going to be his base of operations for the foreseeable future. It was only prudent to take a tour. He took off his footwear in the small hallway and put them on a nearby footrest before he strolled into the living room. A nice 3-seater couch was pushed into the farthermost corner, and an oak table was in front of it. A TV faced the seating arrangements, ready to be turned on by the controller on the table. The kitchen was fully equipped to make a good set of meals, and the means to serve them. The 4 bedrooms, necessary to house an entire genin squad and their team leader, were compact and cozy, with a view over the truly massive forest Konoha kept mostly untouched. Inside the bathroom laid the expected necessities, and not much more. What impressed Naruto was the study he found. The mahogany desk and the comfortable armchair were of a luxurious quality, and they would come in handy during long nights of studying and experimenting. After fully exploring the apartment, he decided to get a bit settled in. He pulled up his sleeves to unseal some of the equipment and belongings he always had on him when traveling. Naruto held up his tattooed right arm and smiled a bit as his Fuinjutsu utensils appeared on the living room table in a small smoke cloud. Naruto had originally gotten the concept idea after Jiraiya had explained the theory behind how the 8-trigram seal worked. The seal that kept the Kyuubi locked away inside of him. If you could seal a biju into a person, shouldn't it be possible to seal things into them as well? Spurred on by the thought, Naruto had begun experimenting on his own. In principle, it had seemed like an easy conversion, although it struck him as odd that none of his books even mentioned the concept. Not even Jiraiya knew of a Fuinjutsu scheme that could do what Naruto wanted. It turned out to be anything but easy. He spent months working on that project before he finally ended up in the right ballpark. As it turned out, Naruto had been wrong to assume that you could seal objects into people the same way you would seal a biju. The 8-trigram seal on his belly was a masterpiece, yet it had no physical anchor. In fact, his late father's seal only appeared whenever he used chakra. That was part of its purpose. Its function was to keep an amalgamation of chakra sealed away, and the Uzumaki clan had realized that designing a physical seal was unnecessary. Through their genius, they had made a seal that didn't rely on any physical limitations. If he smudged a line in one of his exploding tags, it quite simply wouldn't work. The 8-trigram seal didn't have any lines to smudge, heck even if he got stabbed in the gut it would still work. The seal operated purely on chakra, and Naruto had been foolish to use the same application in his attempts to seal physical objects into a person. After coming to this realization, he began experimenting with refueled vigor. Eventually he came up with a prototype. The present-day result was an outcome after many sleepless nights tinkering over the finer technicalities of the seal. Put simply, Naruto could seal stuff into himself. Plural. 1 object per spiral, and he had 6 twisting spirals corkscrewing up his right arm. At least at the moment. Fortunately, he still had a bit of arm left to go. The choice to outline the seal the way he did had seemed natural to Naruto, simply because it conserved a lot of space. Jiraiya had praised him for the design. It was one of the few seals ever made to work on something else other than a completely flat surface. Jiraiya called it a spherical design, and told Naruto that he had only seen something similar a handful of times before. The final effect looked surprisingly good. Each of the symbols etched into his arm were tiny, but Jiraiya, once he had explained the theory and gotten the man on board, had drawn them masterfully. How the symbol sometimes seemed to dance across his arm fascinated Naruto. A trick of the light, of course, but it still caught his eye every time it happened. The blonde sat down and channeled some more chakra into one of the seals, and a dark gray combat attire flopped onto the floor. The custom-made outfit had a small hip compartment with some basic Fuinjutsu equipment, and the traditional shinobi pouch stored with projectiles was attached to the right pant leg. The cloth was lightweight and gave Naruto some flexibility, although it did little in the way of protecting him. The outfit also had numerous pockets, which Naruto had found to be very handy in the field. He unsealed another spiral, and a tanto appeared in his hand. He held it up, and the small chakra-conductive knife shone in the light with a menacing gleam. He vividly remembered his first, and only kill. A single sweep of the tanto, its sharpness amplified several times with his wind chakra, had done the job. The kill had been instant. Even so, it had felt off somehow. Not wrong, but not right either. Despite having already become a competent shinobi in his own right, Naruto wasn't sure how he was supposed to react to killing. He felt no guilt or sadness when he thought about how the man had bled out in front of him. But there had been something to it, something he couldn't quite put his finger on. Naruto hated the topic of killing, despite it being such a big part of his work. It was a necessary act from time to time, but he disliked to think about who got to decide when and where. Killing was a moral minefield, impossible to navigate, and Naruto probably hated that more than the actual killing. There was never a clear answer, and that was what irked him about it. Naruto sighed and looked at the time. It was late afternoon. He had to be ready for whatever test the Sandaime had in mind. He unsealed another spiral and a custom-made wakizashi sprung into his hand. Tomorrow was going to be an exciting day. When Naruto arrived at the Hokage office the next morning in his shinobi attire, he wasn't too surprised to be taken away for a walk. Apparently, the Sandaime had a particular location in mind for the day. The fact that the entrance to this place was in the back room of an unfrequented shinobi-only bar was only fitting, he supposed. Not to mention secretive. This seems very shady, Naruto pointed out as he and the village leader descended flights of worn stairs. Because it is, Hiruzen replied evenly. They were alone, and he knew it was no use keeping Naruto in the dark. He would find out eventually. Oh, how come? Naruto questioned, interest piqued. Well, you will not find these facilities in any records, Naruto, they do not exist on paper. Naruto would have normally commented here, but he realized the Hokage was not done explaining. You see, a rather powerful and secret faction of Konoha's spy network works here, led by my former teammate, Danzo Shimura. When I say Konoha's spy network, I am being literal. They do not answer to me, but to Danzo. He is the leader of Root. Root? Naruto repeated quizzically. The stares down did not stop. Their name, it's symbolic supposedly. The proud trunk that supports the leaves of Konoha is the shinobi core. Root, however, lies in the shadow of the tree. Naruto finished for him. Very good. The Sandaime smiled encouragingly. Danzo thinks my rule is too soft. On occasion he takes matters into his own hand. He has always tried to keep Root hidden from me. I only discovered its existence a trifle few years ago. And it's only a few months ago that I was able to establish a working relationship with Danzo again. Working relationship? Isn't what he does down here high treason? In almost every aspect, yes. I can tell you right now that he also practices several unsavory policies down here. However, I do not have the political ammunition to take down Danzo. For some reason it seems like he has every influential and important person in his pocket just when he needs them the most. An odd thing to say, I know, but it is still the truth. Besides, he has his uses. The Hokage robes continued to swish against the hard stairs as they descended the last few steps. They walked ahead into a dimly lit corridor. Two black-clothed figures appeared behind them, both armed with an uchigatana. They impressed Naruto, but the Hokage appeared unbothered. So, instead you made some sort of truce with him? Naruto tried to get back to the conversation. In a way. We have an understanding, and we can agree on certain things. He quickly consented when I asked for an out-of-the-way training facility, on the condition that he could participate. The Sandaime gave Naruto a concerned look. He knows about you, unfortunately, so there is no point in trying to conceal you. Naruto only shrugged, and followed Hiruzen when they took a right turn. The Root personnel remained in their shadows. Naruto, however, was concerned about something else. What exactly will you have me do today? Well, physical tests, a full rundown of your taijutsu, some theory, a few combat scenarios. Your ninjutsu will also be scrutinized, as well as your chakra control and elemental manipulation. Okay. Naruto responded stiltedly, not sure if he was happy about revealing his kit. The place itself was giving him a mild case of claustrophobia. You will also be given a few mental exercises to practice, not to mention some theoretical tests. I need to know how much you know. In any case, expect to be exhausted when we leave. Naruto dipped his head one last time. He liked structure, so just hearing what he'd be doing for the day was a comfort. Although, I can't say I like the thought of having this Danzo figure observing me. I take it we won't be alone during all of this, other than this Danzo? Goodness no, we will have some assistants of mine helping us. Highly overqualified assistants, but assistants nonetheless, so it seems we have arrived. 3 men stood waiting outside a door a bit further down a new bend in the corridor. Naruto eyed them levelly, but was careful in taking note of their equipment and postures. He was surprised when Hiruzen reacted to one of the men's presence with mirth. Kakashi! This must be the first time in years I have seen you arrive early for anything other than an ANBU assignment. Ma, I was just lucky on the road of life today, I suppose. The man named Kakashi responded. Naruto thought there was something familiar about the name. Where had he heard it? Other than the very standard flak jacket and shinobi equipment, Kakashi also wore a face mask and used his forehead protector to cover up his left eye. His entire posture was one of absolute nonchalance. The only part of him that seemed ready and aware was his right eye, which was looking straight at Naruto. You still tell your students that old excuse? The Sandaime asked as the two of them came to a stop in front of the 3. Kakashi shrugged noncommittally. The other 2 were also clearly shinobi. The dark-haired man farthest to the left used a cane to support himself. Oddly enough, he also had his forehead and left eye wrapped in bandages. Did everyone lose their eyes down here? The last man wore an ANB uniform and their characteristic porcelain masks. Naruto couldn't quite decide which animal the mask was trying to represent. The atmosphere seemed tense. He wondered if there was any history between the men. The Sandaime coughed to get everyone's attention. Well then, this is Uzumaki Naruto, Naruto-kun. I would like you to meet Hatake Kakashi, Shimura Danzo, and the ANBU member here is Tenzo. Naruto dipped his head curtly. Pleased to meet you. The pleasure is ours, young Naruto-kun. The bandaged man, Danzo, spoke. Shall we go inside and begin? Danzo's question was directed at the Sandaime. Naruto wondered quietly at how fake the subservience was. He could have sworn he saw a wink from somewhere in the dark sockets of the one with the ANBU mask. Yes, let's not tarry here. Multiple spotlights lit up upon their entrance, illuminating a very large and rectangular room. Most of it was naked, with lots of room to maneuver in. There was, however, in the top left corner a small and elevated platform with tables and seating arrangements. Blank reports, scrolls, and books littered the tables. Naruto's attention was drawn to the floor and walls, however. It seemed an odd choice to have the floor consist of large black stone tiles. Even the walls had the same makeup. In any case, all the tests would be done in this room. That meant there were no bodies of water to use, no earth to manipulate, and most importantly to him, no natural wind to fan. His only comfort was knowing that the same thing would apply to his sparring partner. The group of 5 motioned further into the room behind Hiruzen. For a few heavy seconds there was complete silence, not even their footsteps gave sound. Naruto honestly thought the situation was more than a bit abnormal at this point. He felt very much like he was in the thick of it. Perhaps not so strange, with an ANBU and a Jonin walking silently at his sides, and 2 old lions both pretending to be docile walking at the front. He was way out of his league, but there was nothing to be done about that. He had felt out of his depth ever since he arrived in the Sandaime's office yesterday. This was just the state of things now, it seemed, and he had to adapt. Danzo was the first to speak again. This room took years to make. It may not look much at first, but a great deal of work and time has gone into making. Frowning at those words, Naruto unceremoniously kneeled down to touch the curious stone floor. This texture. It's oddly familiar. There was a faint, almost magnetic pull on his chakra coils. Now very bemused, Naruto allowed some of his chakra to exit the Tenketsu point in his hands, only to feel the chakra evaporate. It was simply gone. It's not just chakra conductive. There's something else to this. Danzo paused in his explanation to look back at Naruto, who was still crouching by the floor. What? Oh, did I say that aloud? The floor. Naruto murmured. You've mixed some chakra-conductive metal into the floor surface, and the walls too, I would guess. The only reason you would do that is if you wanted it to react to chakra in some way. This place must have cost a fortune. Naruto rose to his feet, and took some satisfaction from their faces. My guess is that you've used Fuinjutsu in conjunction with the conductive metals to somehow create a surface area which is chakra absorbent. It's probably chakra resistant too. It's very impressive, in either case. To Naruto's disappointment, Danzo didn't lose any outward composure at having the secrets of the room so easily revealed. Yet Naruto was surprised when he heard an amused snort at his right side. Everyone turned to look. Kakashi's excuse of a runny nose was even more ridiculous than the actual slight. Danzo appeared as if it was all beneath him. Color me impressed already, Naruto-kun, right on all accounts. I take it you've come across chakra-conductive weapons or objects before then? Yes. Naruto replied uninformatively. His very own Tanto was chakra-conductive. He only barely stopped himself from touching his tattoos. He would reveal that when he felt like it, and not before. They unanimously began walking again. I don't see any seals though, where do they come in? Tenzo questioned quietly. Maybe young Naruto-kun knows the answer to that too. I figure they're on the flip side of the tiles, in other words, beneath us. Correct again. Danzo hummed. So, what will we do for starters? Naruto was keen to get the entire thing over and done with. Danzo's unflappable attitude made him uncomfortable. I believe I told you what I had in mind earlier? Hiruzen's calm voice made itself known again. Yes, and truth be told, this appears overly comprehensive to me. I want more than just estimates, Naruto. I want a full rundown, and an accurate one at that. Seems unnecessary no matter how I look at it. I doubt you put any of my peers through a process like this for their genin exams. You'll see my abilities firsthand during the exams anyway. Why the rush? It was a slight struggle for Naruto to keep his voice neutral at the end of his tirade. This kind of disobedience is what you get when you send a man like Jiraiya to tutor an impressionable child. Danzo cut in distastefully. Naruto froze for a moment, surprised at the blatant disrespect to his master. Be quiet, Hiruzen began, but Naruto overrode him. You don't know anything about my master. He would die for this village. Don't talk like you can understand him. Maybe the words put Danzo off balance. Perhaps it was the ice-cold tone, or the absolute faith Naruto displayed in his teacher. Whatever the case, Danzo stilled and did not retort. Naruto let it be with that. The group had come to a stop by the two tables. The Sandaime eyed Naruto approvingly. The way I see it, you have earned a few straightforward answers. Naruto blinked. The Hokage continued unbothered. I would like to point out that comparing you to your peers is pointless because you are far more advanced. How much advanced is what I would like to find out today. A single day of reviewing your skills is not nearly that much when you consider the fact that we have years of isolated training to peruse. Lastly, and this I can say with my full conviction, this is necessary. Why? Let me finish, Naruto. Yesterday I told you, you would compete in the exams. I never told you in what capacity. Ugh, I was afraid of this. A half-smile appeared on Hiruzen's face. I will be blunt then. I want your cooperation in countering an invasion orchestrated to take place sometime during the Chunin exam, among other tasks. A long silence enveloped the small group, and Naruto felt scrutinizing looks from all sides. Everyone was waiting for a reaction, but Naruto remained stoic. Inside his head, his mind was awhirl. A full-scale invasion and a possible war in the woodwork was not what he expected. This was far bigger than he had imagined, and somehow he was getting hauled into it by a pair of self-righteous old men. The real question, however. What exactly do you want me to do? The short and clipped question came out tiredly. We've already given you more information than we should have, don't press your luck. Danzo said stonily. He had taken a seat in a red and comfy armchair by the end of the closest table. He idly picked up some of the sheets on the table. They looked like empty reports from where Naruto was standing. The Sandaime followed Danzo's lead and sat down. He took out his pipe and began stuffing it calmly, completely unbothered. He only spoke up when Naruto sat down. Kakashi and Tenzo both remained standing. We just want to do some tests for now. When we have an accurate measurement of your abilities, we'll decide on what kind of assignment you're suited for. Naruto was rapidly starting to understand that Danzo and Hiruzen intended to combine their forces to fight off the invasion. Peace through a common enemy. Why? Naruto threw Sarutobi a knowing look. Make sure not to get backstabbed, old man. What seemed obvious was that they both wanted to use him, although he assumed in very different ways. I'm not really keen on killing Genin, if that's what you have in mind, Naruto finally replied. Gaara will be doing enough of that on his own. Kakashi and Tenzo both glanced at him quickly before looking away. To my knowledge, you have killed before. The comment was almost offhanded. Nevertheless, Hiruzen let it hang long enough to make it obvious he expected a reply. Naruto stared as the old man lit his pipe with a slight flick of the hand. Fire manipulation, his mind supplied distantly. That was unavoidable and unplanned. I just don't like the thought of taking someone's life simply because it's convenient. You're an idealist, Danzo told him. I can respect that. At this, Naruto gave the bandaged man a raised eyebrow in challenge. Danzo smiled bitterly. It's far better to put your faith in ideals than in people. People are whimsical and bound by mortality, whereas an ideal is consistent and everlasting. However, you would do well to get rid of that naive perspective of yours. Sometimes taking a life is more than merely convenient, sometimes it's necessary. That's the sort of sentence that can excuse nearly anything. Naruto returned hotly. He rose out of his chair to face the Sandaime. Can we get started? I'd like to get this over with. Danzo leaned further back into his chair and began writing small tidy lines over the sheets in his hands. The image only served to aggravate Naruto further. How dare he say I'm naive? Well, the floor is right there. Kakashi and Tenzo have their instructions. When Naruto didn't immediately move, he was shooed away. Go on then, I will take notes on you, so don't hold back. Nodding, Naruto trailed after the two assistants. Kakashi started talking when Naruto caught up. Okay, your first test, reflexes, perception and general reaction time. The masked man ticked off a finger at each point. We'll begin immediately. The actual testing proved very peculiar at first, at least to Naruto. Tenzo stepped away and watched with crossed arms as Naruto and Kakashi walked into the center of the large open room. Once there, the silver-haired Jonin held up a simple rubber ball. Try to keep track of this, your objective is to catch it, but you have a time limit of 3 minutes. Poof, and 3 identical sets of Kakashis popped into existence from a smoke screen. Ugh, I can tell this is going to be difficult already. That thought quickly proved itself true, as the Jonin had his clones dash around him at different ranges, all the while passing the ball around with incredible strength. Naruto thought he might break an arm snatching the ball at that speed. If I can catch it at all, that is. He was tempted to use a few shadow clones himself, but figured it would work against the purpose of the test. When Uzumaki Naruto did something, he did it properly. The ball, however, simply flew by too fast to rely on instincts alone. He might catch it given a few attempts, but not on the first try, and Naruto had long ago fallen into the habit of perfecting everything. So, first he had to get the timing down. Naruto didn't keep his attention on the ball for long. Instead, he watched the clones in the hopes of catching a pattern. Nearly every throw went either left or right. He completely disregarded the occasional odd ball that whizzed by uncomfortably close. He could take a gamble and preemptively dash as Kakashi threw the ball, and hope he lucked out. Even if that worked, however, it wasn't the clean solution he wanted. I guess I have to memorize his movements. After having watched several repetitions, however, it became obvious Kakashi never threw the same throw twice in a row. If one clone threw an overhead fastball, then the next would always throw something else, a low curveball example-wise. Moreover, the man had no obvious idiosyncrasies. It was clear Kakashi was trying to be unpredictable. That was not entirely bad for Naruto. The fact that Kakashi was intentionally mixing things up gave Naruto some good information. For one, Kakashi had yet to throw the same kind of ball twice in a row. If he kept that in mind and remained observant, he could effectively rule out an entire throw. Now, if he could somehow figure out how to get a good read on the Jonin, maybe he could anticipate a throw and react in time. The timer is ticking down fast. I need to be quick about this. A slow exhale calmed him somewhat. He straightened up and tried not to be too obvious in his thinking. His blue eyes skipped from clone to clone. Whoever he was, Hatake Kakashi was a refined shinobi. His movements belied years of field experience and a firm confidence. The man had clearly taken great care to erase his patterns, his habits. But what Naruto tried to spot was beyond that. He was trying to see even the slightest preference in the man's movements, the tiniest hint of anything regular. Not a habit, not a pattern, but something to exploit nonetheless. He was disappointed to come up with nothing as the seconds passed by. He's just too meticulous. There was no timer anywhere as far as he could tell, but Naruto had a fairly good internal clock. There was not many seconds left. I guess it's time to try. It happened at explosive speeds. Kakashi received a fastball and began the first motions to throw. Considering it's the last few seconds, he's going to play it safe and throw it straight into the closest clone. Naruto sprinted off from his point in the middle of the clones with a burst of chakra. The ex-ANBU reacted immediately, and changed the course of his throw. The kid made a good guess, but he should have tried something sooner. Going for the ball in the last few seconds is too predictable. Kakashi released the ball and watched as it flew through the air towards the clone furthest away from Naruto. He messed up. Kakashi summarized to himself. The Jonin choked on that very thought in the next instant when Naruto blasted straight into the ball's trajectory. What? He managed to turn so abruptly. The rubber ball slammed into the boy's ready hand with a satisfying smack. Naruto let his momentum carry him forward and was able to skid to a stop several meters away from where he had intercepted the ball. A moment of silence, then several audible pops signaled the disappearance of Kakashi's clones. How did you do that? The silver-haired shinobi asked, not sure how the boy had done it. No one can react that fast. The young blonde gave his instructor a neutral look, and Kakashi almost physically winced at the striking resemblance the boy had to his father. You never adhered to a pattern. But to constantly keep away from any pattern is in itself also a pattern. The fact that you never threw the same ball twice in a row made me realize you were the analytical type. After studying you for a while, I realized my best shot would be to surprise you. So, when the clock started running out, I went with my instincts and dashed towards a clone. You noticed immediately and switched up your throw, but I had anticipated that, so I caught anyways. Naruto gave the man a satisfied smile. If you had done a few repetitive throws every now and then, I don't think I would have tried that move against you. From the table a small distance away, the Sandaime paused in his scribblings to add something. He read you, Kakashi? Not your patterns, I think. But your tendencies, your methodology. The way you operate and make decisions. The Jonin seemed stymied at that, if only for a moment. He was able to see what was underneath the underneath. He muttered in realization. Okay. Next test we'll check out your speed. Naruto nodded, and glanced at the ANBU operative, who continued to watch the proceedings stoically from the side. Danzo mostly had his eyes on his writings, but every now and then he looked up to study Naruto. It was going to be a long day. After having him run through a gauntlet to test his speed, he was surprised to see Tenzo issue the next test, a test of brute force. The ANBU spoke with a clear voice, and used inflections to impress the importance of certain words. Not like Kakashi's laid-back and relaxed explanations. We'll measure your strength next. First we'll see what you can do without any chakra enhancement helping you. Tenzo paused, and Naruto could feel the man considering him from behind the mask. Before that, however, you need to understand the absolute secrecy you will have to maintain after today. Needless to say, what transpired down here today cannot be spoken of. That goes doubly so for what I'm about to show you. Naruto merely nodded, slightly surprised at the sudden intensity of the ANBU. It was all made very clear when actual branches grew out of the man's open palms. Naruto was mollified. That's Mokutan release, yes. Recognize, accept and adapt. I'm not going to answer any of your questions right now. Naruto looked up into the slits of the ANBU mask. A pair of black eyes looked back at him. Naruto dipped his head in understanding. He's not going to answer any questions. Still the Shodaime's ability in someone else. That is scary. Okay, let's get started. Tenzo wasted no time in doing just that. He kneeled down and swiftly created a wooden dummy. Or rather, he grew one out of his hands. Tenzo then straightened up and stepped away from his creation. He gave a meaningful look to Naruto. Remember, no chakra. Show us what you got. Naruto stared at the dummy in front of him. Strength, eh? Well, it's obvious enough what they want me to do. Naruto reared back his arm and stepped forward with the intent to punch it with enough force to see it flying. Tenzo regarded the boy silently. In truth, he didn't expect the boy to do much damage. By not allowing the boy any chakra usage, they had effectively removed all of his firepower. For some reason the Sandaime still wanted to know what the Uzumaki could do despite the obvious outcome. Crunch! Tenzo looked on in interest as the target dummy took an impressive double back flip before it crash-landed headfirst a small distance away. Not at all bad, did he cheat somehow? Tenzo peeked over at Kakashi, who was staring at Naruto with his lone Sharingan activated. Kakashi didn't see anything. He would have signaled me otherwise. Still, Tenzo looked back at the young subject, who was currently waving a scraped and bruised hand around. To have that much raw physical strength so early in life was no small feat. Tenzo briefly wondered at what the boy had done in order to attain it. Part of it might be due to his Jinchuriki status, but that was not nearly all there was to it. Tenzo was certain of that. One more time, Naruto-san. Give us your best shot, chakra is allowed. This time, Tenzo made the dummy several times more robust and heavy. Yet it hardly seemed to matter. With chakra at his disposal again, Naruto easily plowed the dummy into the far wall. Chips of wood flew everywhere, but the wall remained untarnished. Tenzo allowed a ghost of a smile to grace his lips. We're going to have a field day with this kid. I think it's time we moved on to a combat scenario. What do you think, Kakashi-senpai? Agreed. Kakashi concurred from the sidelines. He gave Naruto a questioning look. Unless you want to wait until after we've examined your entire skill set? Point taken. Naruto replied. I'm ready when you are. Tenzo moved away, and Kakashi's visible eye narrowed slightly. Overconfidence? Don't take this. Kakashi formed a hand seal with both thumbs pointing up. Naruto processed the single seal quickly. That's a tiger seal, a shunshin. Lightly. The silver-haired Jonin appeared behind Naruto, thinking the boy would try to scatter. He was surprised when instead, Naruto performed a sudden spin kick aimed at his solar plexus. The experienced veteran deftly caught the leg by the ankle before it hit its mark. That's some good reflexes and decisiveness, but a bad move overall. Kakashi chided internally. He was surprised yet again though, when Naruto kicked off ground with his standing leg, and once in the air, he twirled. Kakashi reeled back a bit as he caught the sweeping kick, this one uncomfortably close to his face. Didn't he learn from the first failure? Kakashi wondered. I'll just throw him into the ground. Naruto, with both his legs in a vice grip, quickly realized his predicament, and immediately snapped out his right arm. Kakashi watched the arm stretch out towards him in confusion. It shouldn't make contact. A small cloud of smoke appeared and momentarily concealed parts of Naruto's body, who was now level with the ground and picking up speed from Kakashi's swing. Then, a sharp knife cut through the smoke like an angry bird of prey. Kakashi was forced to let go in order to dodge the wide slash. Naruto caught himself with his left hand and rolled back onto his feet and into a low stance. The Jonin let out a small breath. He hadn't imagined himself nearly cut open in the very first exchange with the boy. He looked up, and the Uzumaki met his eyes without any of the fear and nervousness you would expect in someone so young in that situation. Instead, Naruto's eyes considered him blankly, analytically. Looks like I won't have to tell him to come at me with the intent to kill. His hand traveled up his chest to rest at his collarbone, where the tanto from earlier had nearly drawn blood. He's already given it a good go, after all. With a slight exhale, Kakashi pulled away his forehead protector. Naruto stared at the revealed Sharingan, and something finally clicked in his head. You're the copy nin, aren't you? Famed for stealing a 1000 techniques, supposedly. Humph, I would expect nothing less from you at this point. Still, Jiraiya-sama overdid himself this time. Naruto took the compliment without comment. Neither felt the need to mention their odd connection derived from the yondaime. In the end, that was unnecessary. Instead, Naruto made the seal of reconciliation. Jiraiya had explained once how the seal was used prior to traditional shinobi sparring, to demonstrate that the two opponents are still comrades after sparring. In this instance, Naruto hoped it conveyed some of his respect for the famous Jonin who had once been his father's pupil. Despite the face mask, Naruto could detect a small smile in the man. The two then lowered into their separate stances. Naruto with his tanto at the ready, and Kakashi with several kunai held in between his fingers. A sort of excited energy came over the Uzumaki. Unable to wait any longer, Naruto ran at the Jonin. The renowned Sharingan wielder met him head-on, and for a breathtaking moment, the two traded blows evenly. Steel bit into steel as the two wrestled for dominance. Shimura Danzo paused in his writings to observe more carefully. Taking Kakashi on like that is beyond foolish. Even if he's holding his own for the moment. Naruto slashed at the Jonin with ferocious fervor. The equilibrium was already inclining. He knew what he was doing was reckless. In addition to the Sharingan, Naruto was physically outmatched. Although he used ample amounts of chakra to greatly boost his own strength, that didn't change his inferior height or reach. To top it all off, Kakashi was by far the more experienced of the two. Despite all of that, or maybe because of it, Naruto refused to back down. He wanted to see how far his abilities could take him against such a strong opponent. He wanted to try. Kakashi deflected the tanto with a sweep of his kunai. The Sharingan wielder then tried to step in closer to better work the angles with his choice of weapon. Naruto recognized his intentions almost immediately and hopped backwards into a defensive stance. He knows I have the better reach with the tanto, and he probably thinks I'll use that to counterattack him when he steps in. But why should I make things obvious? Kakashi was closing the distance when Naruto vitalized his body with a large influx of chakra. Quick as lightning, Naruto flicked two Senbon at the approaching Jonin before he dashed forward with a thrust of his tanto. The Jonin merely leapt above the danger zone and launched some of his own projectiles down at Naruto in the process. The Uzumaki sidestepped them narrowly, and with a rapid swivel of his body, he blasted off a futon, Kazakiri at the airborne Kakashi. The wind cutter never hit Kakashi. Instead, it sliced through the handle of a lone kunai. He used Kawarimi. The silver-haired Jonin reappeared directly behind Naruto, at the spot where the last of his earlier projectiles had hit. The young blonde whirled around just in time to put up a guard. Even so, the strong kick had him skid several meters across the stone floor. Naruto recovered quickly, but he was surprised when he saw Kakashi reach over his shoulder to unsheath a steel blade of his own. Also a tanto. It's been a while since I used one of these. I usually don't have to. But swordsmanship is one of my best qualities, you know. The Jonin drawled warningly. Bring it. Naruto called out. You're not the only one talented here. Without any hand signs, Naruto blurred into a Shenshin. He reappeared at Kakashi's right side. The two slim blades clashed in a shower of sparks, but Naruto didn't have the raw strength to challenge Kakashi for more than a moment. He didn't need any more than that. With his left hand he hooked a finger around one of his kunai before he expertly twirled it into his grip. Withdrawing his tanto, Naruto narrowly sidestepped Kakashi's immediate follow-up attack, and in the same motion, he stabbed at the man's side with his offhand. Kakashi flicked it away with a kunai of his own. Growing bold, Naruto did an abrupt dash to the side, he then performed a curved upward strike with the tanto. Kakashi smacked it away, he then moved to parry Naruto's subsequent offhand stab. Only, this time it was more to it than just a stab. Kakashi's eyes widened. He infusing the kunai with wind chakra. With the wind chakra extending his reach, Naruto managed to cut off the tip of Kakashi's kunai and make a rift in his flak jacket. His Sharingan saw me molding the nature chakra? Incredible. He didn't get to think much more, because Kakashi had finally decided to go on the offensive again. The Jonin dropped the now useless kunai in favor of using his tanto with both hands. All thoughts seized in Naruto's head when the silver-haired Jonin went on the attack. Years of inbuilt muscle memory and instinct guided the teen as he continued to parry and weave in between increasingly violent attacks. Naruto deflected 3 rapid strikes from Kakashi. He then stepped forward to slash at the Jonin with his own blade, but the veteran batted his attack to the side and quickly went for the opening. Unknown to Kakashi, Naruto also saw an opportunity. The younger duelist moved and used his left hand to grab and stop Kakashi's blade in its movement. Naruto grimaced in pain, and blood spurted onto the floor. Kakashi stared at him. Looks like you drew first blood. Naruto congratulated with an adrenaline-filled smile. Bad move, Naruto. The Jonin replied quietly, before channeling lightning into the blade. Or rather, he tried to, but the blade vanished in a small smoke cloud. Unbeknownst to the elite shinobi, Naruto had sealed it into himself. Kakashi barely contained his surprise at the sudden lack of his weapon. Naruto pounced at the opportunity with a feral grin. Kakashi leaned out of the way of Naruto's wind-enhanced swing with very little margin. The Jonin then opted to use another Kawarimi to create some distance. Naruto had anticipated the move, and dropped his tanto in order to form the bird sign. Kakashi had little time to recollect himself before an air bullet was fired from across the room. The old ANBU operative danced past the bullet, just in time to see his own tanto slice through the air towards him. Kakashi dodged that too, and the tanto flew past him. Only to realize Naruto was nowhere in sight. The tanto! He substituted. The Jonin whirled around with blinding speed. He only barely managed to stop Naruto from cleaving him in two. Kakashi's eyes bulged when he noticed the seal tag on Naruto's arm. No, scratch that, the clone's arm. The copy then exploded in a spectacular fashion. Even with the Shunshin, Kakashi didn't get away unscathed. The Sharingan wielder appeared on the other side of the room with a thin trail of smoke rising in his wake. Thankfully, the flak jacket had done a good job protecting him from the blast. Even so, the burnished markings in his clothes hinted at some good damage. Arg, my hair got singed. I'm never going to live this down. The lazy Jonin straightened up to look across the room, where Uzumaki Naruto stood staring at him in a silent challenge. His bleeding hand dripped only a few drops now. Just as interestingly, a smoke bomb was releasing a steady stream of thick, black smoke from a point in between the two. Kakashi regarded the fumes calculatingly. A smoke screen now, what's he planning? Removed from the fight, the 2 village elders by the table had long ago abandoned their ministrations in favor of spectating the fast-paced spar more closely. Kakashi is being too lenient. Danzo murmured. Maybe, Kakashi was very fond of Minato, and this is his son he's fighting, Hiruzen replied. By now, Naruto's smoke bomb had sent large parts of the room into obscurity. The young apprentice was somewhere inside, no doubt making traps. Kakashi walked fearlessly into the black smog. A shadow clone, Hiruzen guessed. Even so, Naruto might be a ways off from Kakashi's level, but he's clever enough to still pose a threat. Kakashi's natural inclination to avoid any unnecessary risks is helping him a great deal in this fight. A more aggressive Jonin might have been able to overwhelm Naruto early on, but there is also a small chance Naruto would have overcome them using his dangerous tricks. The ones Kakashi have been successfully evading, well, evaded for the most part. Danzo nodded stiffly at the lecture, but looked up when an explosion blew some of the smoke screen away. The youngest combatant in the room waited patiently, still partially obscured by the remaining vapors. Kakashi was nowhere in sight. Seems the clone stepped into something he shouldn't have. The root leader spoke quietly. The Hokage inclined his head in agreement, having arrived at the same conclusion. But where is the real one? The quiet disappeared when Hatake Kakashi burst out of the last remaining smoke with tremendous speed. He then recognized the seal under Naruto's form. The Jonin immediately skidded to a stop. Another explosive surprise? The two fighters locked eyes. Kakashi with his narrow three-tomo Sharingan and Naruto with his blue ones. Some distance away and close to the wall, the real Naruto was observing events from a crouch. He resolutely held up a single-handed seal, and Kakashi's clone vanished in the resulting explosion. His Sharingan had failed to spot a seal behind him through some of the last smoke wisps. To be truthful, Naruto wasn't even sure which of them benefited most from an extended fight. He had the unfair advantages that came with being a Jinchuriki, monstrous endurance and vitality being the key factors. Then again, the more Kakashi learned, the less of a chance Naruto had in surprising him, and the experience gap would only become more noticeable as time went on. Either way, stalling any more would be boring. That thought hit him just as his spatial awareness kicked in. Naruto quickly dashed to the side. He never saw the projectiles, but he heard them clack into the floor behind him. Feeling imminent danger, Naruto quickly adapted a guard stance, which stopped Kakashi's heel kick. If only barely. Naruto didn't pause to check for damage, and quickly stepped in close to the Jonin and performed one of the first movesets Jiraiya had taught him. Kakashi deflected the entire combination series and returned fire with an open palm strike, which Naruto dodged by bending unnaturally low. From there the lithe teenager leaned into a handstand and executed a leg sweep. Kakashi jumped over his sweeping kick and came down at him with a kick of his own. Responding quickly, Naruto launched himself away and back onto his legs. A loud clang resonated through the air, and similar sounds ensued from the center of the room. Naruto managed to take a quick peek at his clone and its adversary, before another small-scale explosion shook the room ever so slightly. Naruto was back to observing Kakashi when he received his clone's memories. So, the last of our duplicates took each other out. As if on cue, both opponents charged ahead and met each other in a contest of taijutsu. Naruto made sure to never use the same move in the exact same way. He had to respect Kakashi's Sharingan. Nevertheless, despite using everything in his taijutsu repertoire, he still found himself on the defensive. The Jonin was just too good, and his Sharingan made it nearly impossible to go on the offensive. It was time for a strategy change. A glancing blow struck his shoulder, and Naruto had to quickly duck and roll to escape the onslaught that followed. He bounced to his feet and quickly took out a kunai to fend off Kakashi, who equipped a kunai of his own in response. The two locked in a power struggle. Naruto struggled until he channeled wind chakra through his kunai. He was surprised, however, when Kakashi brought his lightning element into play. The two stood in a deadlock of disastrous proportions. Wind howled against screeching lightning. Naruto gritted his teeth and focused on making his chakra as sharp as possible. Kakashi had the advantage in size and strength. He might even be better with lightning than Naruto was with wind. Even so. You're not beating me with a weaker element. With considerable effort, Naruto pushed on and sliced through Kakashi's kunai. What happened next occurred in an instant. Naruto, carried by his momentum, tried to stab the Jonin in his side. Their eyes met for half a second. Then, Naruto ran the kunai through the flak jacket and deep into the man. Kakashi groaned through gritted teeth and dropped to his knees. The young apprentice reflexively let go of the kunai. What? Did I know? It's genjutsu. He couldn't see himself taking Kakashi down with such a simplistic move. Earlier he had made the mistake of looking into the Sharingan for a split second. That's probably when he got me under. An acute sense of danger rose up in him. Was there any time left to dispel the illusion? Kakashi wouldn't hesitate in taking him down even if Naruto was effectively blind. He was sure of that. Naruto ignored the bleeding fake Jonin on the ground and quickly vanished from the spot in a shunshin. He was fully aware that Kakashi could be literally anywhere. Naruto repaired on the far side of the room, high up on the wall. Not pausing to enjoy the view, Naruto coaxed out his chakra. Instead of directing it around smoothly as he normally did, this time he forcefully squeezed the chakra through his coils at a record speed. The power obeyed, and the mysterious substance coursed through him. Chakra was life, and Naruto always felt that to his very core when he used it. With so much of it roaring through his system, Naruto was standing on a dangerous cusp. He had to use some of it very soon or risk destroying his pathways. It had done its job, however. Any foreign chakra in him was without doubt long gone by now. Now it was time to weaponize the chakra. Naruto cracked open his eyes, and immediately spotted Kakashi on the floor below, sprinting towards him. The Jonin got more than he bargained for when Naruto bursted off the wall like a cannonball. Eyes wide, Kakashi threw himself to the side and narrowly avoided the fly kick. Naruto whirled around and fended off Kakashi's first strike. Naruto's chakra system was close to the boiling point by now, but he relieved some of the pressure by discharging a great deal of chakra into his taijutsu. Kakashi was caught off guard by the sudden explosive burst of power in the blonde. Naruto plowed into Kakashi's blocks, who winced every now and then at the fierce power of each strike. After another powerful attack, Kakashi adapted and took hold of a kunai. Naruto saw this and quickly changed his own stance into a more fluid and versatile one. With both palms held flat, Naruto attacked again. Kakashi dodged the attacks, and his eyes narrowed when actual wind blades extended out from the young shinobi's flat hands. That requires some serious guts, considering he could just as easily cut himself with that technique. It says something about his control over the wind element, though. Kakashi quickly understood how difficult taking the boy on at close range would be right then. A part of him wanted to use some of his more lethal techniques to even the field, but that was out of the question. Instead, Kakashi opted to make some space. He should probably check out how the boy did on the medium range anyways. Preferably, before he ran out of chakra. He was starting to feel his reservoir draining. He used another shunshin, with no assistance from the traditional tiger sign. To his immense shock, the young futon user appeared at his side in the next instant, already in the motion of another attack. He read me. Age-old instincts resurfaced in the XANBU, and Kakashi responded by lowering his center of gravity and striking out at Naruto in a vicious counter-attack. Electricity thrummed into life, and small sparks danced over Kakashi's hand. It was not quite a Chidori, but it was dangerous nonetheless. Surprised at the immediate reaction, the Uzumaki shifted himself to the right with a powerful chakra burst to his feet. The young prodigy whizzed past the lightning attack to the dismay of the Jonin. Acting in mid-movement, Naruto took a hasty chop at Kakashi with his wind style aiding him. The Jonin evaded the dangerous attack and took hold of Naruto's wrist. In response, Naruto reshaped the last of his pent-up chakra into his wind affinity. A concentrated burst of air escaped his left hand and hit Kakashi. The blast knocked the air out of the man and pushed him across the floor on the balls of his feet. Naruto didn't pause to look, instead he flicked a Saban needle at the veteran before he ran to engage him again. The young blonde had realized something valuable. Unlike with his teacher, it seemed he could actually overpower Kakashi in the chakra department. That might be useful, because I can't fight him efficiently up close as long as he has his Sharingan active. Kakashi recovered quickly enough to dodge the Saban, and before Naruto managed to reach him, Kakashi flashed through a hand sign so fast Naruto failed to spot it. The Uzumaki nimbly dug out a seal from his Fuinjutsu compartment. He didn't stop his run. Not even when Kakashi finished the jutsu by spewing a fireball at him. Naruto ran some chakra into the scroll and held it up towards the fire technique. The fiery red-hot ball was absorbed into Naruto's complex elements seal. Naruto clutched the scroll in his left hand and channeled a tiny trace amount of chakra into his right, where his trusty Tanto appeared in the next moment. He stepped up to Kakashi fully intent to continue fighting. But it was not to be. Enough. The two combatants stilled in their movements. For a short moment neither moved. The Sandaime rose from his seat, and in a calm tone he said, "I believe I have seen more than enough to draw up an accurate image. We have other things to go through today as well, as I'm sure you both know." The two slowly relaxed their postures. Bit by bit they disconnected their flight or fight instincts. The Hokage sat down again and made a small hand motion at the quietly observing Tenzo. Hiruzen expected the instructor to keep to the schedule. Tenzo dipped his head in recognition before performing the shunshin. "A good spar, you performed at a more than adequate level, Naruto-san." Naruto stiffened at the close proximity to the Mokuton user, whom he had not noticed appearing behind them. Ah, well, thank you. It was just starting to get interesting though. Naruto replied, a bit winded after the spar. Yes, I look forward to seeing you in the exams. Moving on, Hokage-sama's next point on the list is chakra control. After that, we want to go through your ninjutsu. Your manipulation over your affinity is remarkable. I want to see how far you can take it. Also, do you have some control over the other elements? Other than that, we're also going to thoroughly dissect your taijutsu. You had at least 3 distinct styles that I noticed. Any others? There's also a few theoretical tests Hokage-sama wants you to take, as well as… Naruto listened closely, silently dreading the ensuing hours. A long day indeed. A worn-down and exhausted Naruto returned to his new apartment that night. He had almost made it up the stairs to his flat when a door somewhere on the story above opened. 2 raised voices easily made it down to him. He paused in surprise. I'm just saying you could try working with the team a bit more. Oh yeah? I don't see you complaining when I save your asses. Still, it's nice to see you guys appreciate what I do. A door slammed shut somewhere above him, and Naruto swiveled his head around to see a girl stomping down the stairs. Hadn't he been so tired, he might have moved out of the way. That was not the case, and he watched with detached feeling as the pink-eyed girl stiffly walked down the stairs with her fists clenched tightly. Their eyes met for an instant, and Naruto found himself hoping she wouldn't walk into him. No such luck, she attempted to shoulder her way through him. Instead, she grunted and stumbled back when she hit what felt more like a rock wall than a person. Her hands quickly reached out to grab the railing before sending the blonde a scorching look. Naruto didn't react at all. He merely kept his eyes on her. What's your deal? I'm not in the mood for this, the girl said loudly. Naruto released a small breath and walked past her. Yeah, you just walk away, and stay away too. Don't waste my time, I'm gonna win this exam. Doubtful. The simple reply infuriated the black-haired girl to no end. She turned around and stared hard after the incredulous boy. Naruto kept walking. What the hell does that mean? You think I'm not good enough, huh? I'm the granddaughter of the Tsuchikage, you shouldn't underestimate me. No, it's just that I'm probably gonna have to win it. He gave a tiny shrug. One that very clearly said tough luck. The audacity of the boy left the IWA genin stunned for a moment. Unbothered and tired, Naruto unlocked number 9 and walked into his flat without further comment. He did take some amusement from the frustrated groan he heard outside, followed by a mad dash down the stairs. Early morning, the Hokage office. Let me just ask you one thing, Hokage-sama. Have you become slightly unhinged in your age? Please, at least ask me something relevant, Shikaku. Sarutobi replied nonchalantly to his subordinate's abrasive question. The old leader had been in a perpetual good mood for the past few days. People had taken note of it, but the old man had omitted a clear answer to every question on the matter. Unfortunately, Shikaku Nara seemed to think he was becoming senile. Hiruzen couldn't really blame the man. Shikaku simply didn't have the pieces, nor was he aware of the game taking place. Konoha's resident mastermind took a calming breath at the Sandame's unbothered dismissal. Very well, I'll start by asking why the hell you thought it was a good idea to invite IWA and Kumo to this exam. Or Kiri for that matter. You've asked me that a few times this month already, Shikaku, and to think some of the clan heads doubted they would even show up. Of course they showed up. We literally gave them a free pass into Konoha. Anyone would have taken that opportunity. The Nara shook his head, disturbed by the lack of impact his words had on the man in front of him. The Sandame pointed to the folders sandwiched under his commander's arm. Financial reports, I take it? Give them here and I'll verify them. The Jonin commander handed the papers over almost reluctantly. We've reached a new low on funds. The new construction projects have proved themselves expensive, as I warned. We could at least have cut some costs by charging the stay of the participants. I never doubted your warnings, Shikaku, but charging their stay would be unwise. The Sandame replied as he skimmed over the numbers. Shikaku let out another long breath. Hokage-sama, your recent decisions have left a lot to be desired. Certainly, Jiraiya-sama's return is wonderful news, but where do you keep the Uzumaki? Shikaku put his hands on the desk in front of him and leaned forward to stare at his leader's unbothered visage. The Sandame continued to glance over the numbers. Shikaku let out his frustrations with the man. Why build all these new things? The arena, the apartments, why? The fact that we're going to host this vast exam of yours tomorrow is just great. My son will be there, and with so many unknowns participating I worry for his safety, him and the rest of the rookies. The Sandaime paused in his readings to look at his commander. The man met his gaze with steely determination. Hiruzen knew Shikaku's devotion was the sole reason he still had the magnificent Jonin commander at his side. Even so, Hiruzen could identify a fraying loyalty when he saw one. The Hokage held up 2 fingers with the air of a man who expected things to be done. Shikaku observed as 2 previously hidden ANBUs appeared in the darkened corners of the room. Both cleared out after activating a number of privacy seals behind some of the many canvases of the room. Shikaku Nara took a seat, inwardly very satisfied with the sudden turn of events. I take it you're finally going to explain some of this to me? The commander guessed. Yes. Some of it. 5 months ago, I received some peculiar news from our ambassador in Sunagakure. And? It was a simple note. It stated how he had come to realize he had several matters left unattended in Konoha. He wanted to return home to put these affairs in order. Shikaku waited expectantly. Unfortunately, he never had a chance to return home. He died the day after he wrote the message. The Nara grunted, clearly displeased. This is why we shouldn't have stopped indoctrinating spies into our ally nations. Someone trained for that sort of scenario would have been far more able to cover his trace. Our diplomat might have survived. I still say we can't build our alliances on distrust, Shikaku, but I'll admit the idea is far more tempting now. In any case, I immediately had Ibiki thoroughly examine the letter. Our standard screening process never found anything, but Ibiki discovered something of note. Out with it, Shikaku replied. He disliked how the Sandaime had to be theatrical at times. There was no encrypted message, no hidden code, at least not in the actual words. However, the letter contained trace elements of things you usually don't find in paper, like pigments and paraffin. A light of interest flickered in Shikaku's eyes. I see, and what did Ibiki make of it? He realized no amount of staring at the note under the light would help. Instead, he made this. The Hokage picked out a particularly thin paper from one of his drawers. It's a drawing. By covering the letter with this paper, Ibiki brought out the secrets by gently scrubbing a piece of charcoal over it. Very simplistic. Shikaku took the paper handed to him, his brows furrowed. He took a long look. His eyes were grave when he looked up at his leader again. A snake? Eating leaves? Yes. I also think it's lying on a sand dune, but it's a bit hard to tell. I understand how one can arrive at some conclusions from this, but still, it's far-fetched. The Jonin commander seemed skeptical. The Sandaime straightened in his cushioned armchair. This is not shogi, Shikaku. We don't have the luxury of a bird's-eye view of the entire battlefield, and everyone in it. I have to make do with what little intelligence I have, and ignoring this would be the height of stupidity. Shikaku nodded. He could agree with that. Exactly how many knows? Me, you, and Ibiki. Jiraiya is also in the fold. Now, I discovered this 5 months ago, and as you stated, this is a bit far-fetched. At the time, I immediately contacted Jiraiya and gave him the gist of our discoveries. As is his wont whenever Orochimaru is concerned, he agreed to investigate. The Sandaime let out a small sigh. He trekked off with our young Namikes, and headed for Otogakure. Shikaku looked up in surprise. The new village just above our northern borders? Precisely that one. Its sudden appearance was suspicious in and of itself, and we knew Orochimaru liked to meddle. Frankly, at the time it seemed unlikely he was not involved with the village in some way. The incriminating letter we received convinced Jiraiya to look for clues after the snake, and as Jiraiya had no good leads on Orochimaru's whereabouts, he went to a place he felt Orochimaru might have been active, not unreasonable given the situation. But did he have to bring the boy? Shikaku questioned. No, but Jiraiya is of the opinion that Naruto is safest by his side. I don't really fault him for that, it's not wrong of him. Shikaku gave a slight shrug. The important thing is they made it out alive. They did, although not wholly unscathed. Naruto killed. Shikaku raised a brow in mild interest. He hoped there was a report. I take it Jiraiya-sama found something of note after going through so much trouble? The Hokage eyed his Jonin commander with amusement. It turns out Orochimaru was more than just involved, he controls Otogakure. The Sandaime continued on, and the Jonin commander listened with hard eyes. Whatever our diplomat discovered in Suna, his message was clear enough to understand. Orochimaru intends to destroy the leaf. The Chunin exams would be the perfect time to do it. To add weight to this, I have noticed several odd inconsistencies in the past few months. Did you know the Kazekage intends to bring an honor guard over twice the usual size this year? Peculiar, no? Naturally, I began to prepare. Then, all of this the invites to IWA, Kiri, Kumo, and all the lesser nations, the apartments, the new arena? Shikaku listed. I knew the addition of the other nations would completely unhinge Orochimaru's carefully planned schemes. Now he has to adapt to a whole new set of players, and he can't lash out carelessly unless he wants to make enemies with the most powerful elemental nations. Shikaku shook his head slightly in an attempt to distance himself from the situation. You're aware this is a double-edged sword, right? Orochimaru could pin a lot of the blame on Konoha in a combat scenario. We're the hosts here. I fully expect him to try. We just have to make sure it does not happen. What you have to realize, Shikaku, is that I intend to make Konoha seem unbeatable through these little war games we like to dub as exams. I want the public to marvel at the capacity of our shinobi this year. Not bad thinking, but is that image going to hold up once we get invaded? The Nara murmured concernedly. The Hokage eyed his commander coolly. I'm building an image because it will help deter other nations from joining Orochimaru. Anyone tempted by Orochimaru will have second thoughts after witnessing our top genin in action. Not to mention our gracious treatment of the participants will make them feel flattered and accepted. A rent-free stay in new rooms goes a far way in establishing good relations, and the new arena is crucial because we will host a far larger event this year, and it has a multitude of safety mechanisms built within. I can follow you on that. Except, our top genin? Whom are you referring to? The Uchiha? Or one of the Hyugas? A small smile stretched across the Sandame's face. He went beyond even my expectations. Our top contender in the exams is going to be none other than Nanato's legacy, and he's developed even faster than I thought he would. Naruto? Shikaku blinked at the revelation, although, in hindsight, he should have expected it. The Sandame looked smug as he pulled out a folder from his desk. The Nara clan had received it and opened the folder with curiosity. What he read was astounding. Is it all legitimate? He asked in marvel. The Hokage hummed affirmatively.